here nitric acid, glycerine, and a special mixture of my own.
Well, then why can't we see it?
Finally, we get to, at a certain point, this 8th and 9th dimensional being.
Guess I had to get it off of mute first. Wholeness and Balance Vibrations family, just jumping into space today to show some love. What's up, YouTube? This is going to Facebook too. What's happening, everyone? It's amazing to be here with you and to really have this opportunity to, just come in on a, hey, let's talk. I know people love to see some kind of format, and I think I'm pretty good at getting things tightened down well. But today I really wanted to start something where I just come into the space, let you know that I am here, let you know what I'm working on, because I'm always up to something, and then also dive deeper into this metaphysical build that we've been working on for 11 years now. It's just incredible because it just seems like yesterday to me, all of the work and all of the essence that has been poured into this, there's still so much to do. And so when I look at what it takes to keep going, I'm just always answering that call and making sure that I live up to my expectations. I'll say that. And so I'm going to give this a quick moment and actually allow those that are jumping in on the line to not only jump in, because I think it said we were going to get started at 1:30, but I thought it just was going to let me go live when I wanted to. So I know some got the notification a bit early and have been sitting patiently with some Palo Santo and some sage waiting for us to bring it today. And I want to say us because for sure it's going to be a dialogue today versus a monologue. I just came off of a massive ascent inside of the interversity where we just went through the complete process of understanding all the alchemical symbolism and what that means for us, like what that means for a being that is really what it seems like a part of a 0.01%. I was talking about this today about how when you really think about how many people we're talking about anyway that may be able to benefit from activation, it's really a small number because of a few integers that have never been considered. It's like, let's just look at the statistics. 60 to 70% of the people in the world are actually under some dogmatic tradition, and that generally forbids them to look a little bit further into any other writings or works that may be a bit more enlightening about even what you should be eating. If you notice, there's not too much dietary information inside of most of the spiritual books people use, let alone anything about their soul, the afterlife, chakras, and all those kind of things. That's not in the organized tradition, but that makes up 70% of the world. And even the people that last 30% who thinks they got out, they're still in the mindset with that same, Catholicism basically inside their mind. They look at everything every day in that same framework, right? But let's say there's more percentages there. We'll take that 30%. And out of that 30%, I would say a good 20% of them go on this pursuit. And unfortunately, because the spiritual field is so muddled with wannabes and repeaters and people who don't dial in themselves. They just try to recite what somebody else is reciting, and then they go and write a bunch of books about it, and they eventually become the authority about it, even though they've never experienced it themselves. They fall into the traps of those beings and what they've set up. What a lonely bunch. And then let's say we'll take out of that last 10%, 9% that will attempt to perform the work if they have somehow received the knowledge that you need to come into balance and that you need to get this alchemical thing right within you, that you need to, well, actually balance, not right or left, but you really got to perform some level of transmutation on yourself. Let's say there's a good 9% that set out to do that, and just based on application, destruction, of their own morale from others that are around them, the alienation that happens when you start eating different, when you start talking different and all that kind of stuff, that 8%, 9% fall by the wayside. And then we have that 1%. And technically, unless you're going to go into the Jesus thing where 1% of the entire world can change the entire world and take them all to heaven, it makes it somewhat not even something to recommend. And I think that that's why there's not much recommendation on going through the total process of activation that is accurate on this plane right now. It doesn't pay well. It attracts kind of a lot of negative activity around you. Think about going upstream to 70% of the people in the world. That means you didn't even get, the devil's mad at you and God too. You see what I mean? So it's just like this path in itself, which does still reap the greatest results, is actually when you set the game on hard. And I say it that way because we always have this opportunity to go within, to turn it all off. That's what meditation teaches you, and dial out into that space that you've been working on and creating since the time you came into awareness of yourself, and even before then. So, since we got the opportunity to let it breathe, I will say, while the cat's away, the mice will play, meaning that, because I haven't really been on this screen specifically, there has been a lot going on around the YouTube space and overall in the conscious community. I think the conscious community is a lot smaller than we think. We want to be a tribe, but the thing is when others want to disrupt the tribe, when we're all each other's friends on these social networks, you say something and it may dissuade a person at a critical time where they need to actually go forward with something, meaning that we all have to take this responsibility if we're going to be teachers to actually make sure that we're coming in clear and that we realize, what is the goal here. But none of that has been really put into place when you think about it. There's few outlets that have any kind of structure like that except for these secret societies, and we already know don't go up in there. So what I've been doing is actually I've been working on creating something that we can all really have and that we can all really share. And I've gotten pretty far with it, me and the team, and it's actually miraculously changed so many beings' life in this space and let them really see who they are and given a lot of opportunities. But because this is 2021, you'd always want to do that in the best way possible, modern, as they would say, and something that people can ingest. So before we jump in today on just some of the things that I have on my list to really dive into, I also wanted to just show everyone that I've actually been answering that original call, because there was a while ago where we had already agreed that we needed some type of school. We needed some type of what we now call the interversity to give us a step-by-step on this process, because it's not going to happen overnight. We know that. It's not going to happen even in a few days. And in fact, sometimes there shouldn't even be a rush on making the transformation happen, because if it's done improperly, then it just reaps more problems than solutions. So bringing in knowledge and awareness, real deal stuff, and then working on a format for that has been really what I've been up to. I can say that we've definitely progressed in that experience together because we're at the interversity. I want to show something really briefly on the new interversity that we're about to release, a brand new learner management system that actually, this is the previous one. This is actually the one that's available now. And I guess to answer that question, what have you been doing? See, YouTube is an interesting place because when you say certain things on YouTube, then that stuff gets picked up by AI, and AI starts determining who you are from there. I mean, we know that that's happening, but sometimes, maybe just a quick night of passion can make one forget about that on YouTube, but it's still happening. It's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Give me 1 second here. Let me put my image up here. So of course, that means that we do need to, go into somewhat of a private group in order to be able to talk about certain topics, because those things are more important now. And but again, if you say certain words, then, your videos get taken down. You run the potential of losing your entire channel. I always look at this channel as being a place where there's about 120,000 of us. It's organic. Like, there's no pay-per-clicks or anything. This is 11 years, and everybody here is pretty much real. I said almost. And what happens is that because we've been able to create this space, it's a point where we can touch and connect, and there could be 400 people on the line right now that get this message, and then they can send it to others and give it to others. So it's an extreme benefit having this YouTube. However, again, you start talking about certain things and you get flagged the wrong way, especially when the cancel cultures and all that are doing their thing, as there's been a lot more of that going on lately. You find that you may have put 10 or 11 years into something for it to be gone overnight. No one loves the way that would feel, right? And then, of course, we're always encouraged to go and create our own thing. I love when people say that. Like, we should have our own thing. And guess what? We created our own thing, and you'll find few people that use it because they really wanted something else. And in most cases, they just wanted to be entertained. And so what you'll find is, even on this path as a creator, you may create something and think it's a perfect solution for everybody in this reality, and find out, well, you need to think about it a little bit harder because maybe they need something else. So what you're looking at here, if you just wanted to see it in its embodiment, for 2 years, we put together the magnum opus. We told everybody what was going to happen before it happened. We trained everyone on exactly what to do in this time, which wasn't there yet, but we knew it was going to come. We went into advanced physical activation, everything that you do with your body, how to make it work, what's going on inside that unseen realm, I like to call it, because you don't see your liver, you don't see your heart, you don't see your kidney, right? And so this is an unseen realm. It is there, but you don't really know anything about it. Like if I said, where's your pancreas? Point to it. You may not be able to know where to locate it. So we wanted to just go in and do that in a space that we felt comfortable to do that. So that's what the interversity ambassador training has been about. It's now sovereignty mentorship. And as you can see, we just completed the Ascent series, which is here, all the way to 9 degrees, which I'm putting in today. And it delivered, as it has continued to deliver. What is that? The higher self. Anything that I want to know, I just ask. So I spent years asking myself the real questions that you're asking yourself too. Then, once I got those answers, I went to verify it several times, even after being showed in different ways to make sure it was authentic. Then at a certain point, I started noticing some commonalities, and then I found a blueprint. There's a blueprint to life, no different than there's a blueprint inside of everybody's DNA that allows us all to appear as human beings right now. That's the template, and this is the temple that we're in, and I needed to find the manual to that temple. You know this story. And so I set into that, and I found it. It's interesting because you probably do run across beings from time to time that actually have been in and outside the matrix, but most times you wouldn't recognize them because they look like you. You would be like, oh, no, surely he's not been anywhere. Well, why, if he went somewhere, why would he be here right now? Why is he talking to us? And then, it's just that overall rebellious attitude that really no teacher wants to really teach somebody who's rebellious and doesn't want the knowledge. So that's why in our age, we've kind of found that our spiritual teachers are a bit short. I mean, we have a lot of showmen. We have like some marketers, and we have some folks that know how to memorize things a lot, but realistically to draw, like they say, draw all men and women unto you, that kind of embracing humanity and like, hey, this is really what's in front of us, and it not all be koala bears, because there's some uranium in this thing, as I mentioned, like really just saying, hey, this is what we need to understand. There's few of those, and I understand more why now, because there's somewhat of a relentless attack that is going on my personality daily. And again, I be telling people, look, man, if I'm not reacting to you, I'm sparing you. It's not that I don't get to it. Like, look at the old recordings. Nobody's allowed to come up in my face and be talking all crazy and doing crazy things, and I haven't done anything to you. But I don't all the time, just because you're up to something, focus on you, because if I have something else to do, I'm going to finish that. That's called not getting distracted. But then once that's done, now I'm going to handle what's next on the list. And I believe personally that it's time to handle a couple of folks. But we're also going to do that in a way where it's going to be wholesome for us all to learn some things in this process. Because what we're really dealing with, and let me just check my sounds and stuff here, make sure everything's on point. If you can hear us, let us know in the chat. We'll also take some questions here in a moment. And we'll get into some nice stuff before we close down, which will be in about an hour. So I just want to show something really briefly because it will set the tone today. Obviously, you can see Esoteric Radio is coming forward. I won't say coming back because we're always enhancing and enlightening the knowledge more and the wisdom. But Esoteric Radio was a gem for those of y'all that have been around that long because everything we said at Esoteric Radio is going on right now. And we already explained it. And now it's time to come in one more again, especially since in 2021, there's many people who want to know what the hell is going on. Like, I think some people have been checking for me, like, what's happening in the world, Sevan, tell us what's going on. Some people have been even claiming that I'm dead, which we're going to get to here in a moment, just to put the check down, the smack down, because I definitely can say that I am in the building. And on top of that, I have some things to say to this world. I have not given up. I have not forgotten. When you're doing things that, again, you're getting a small percentage of help and really doing, it's great to watch all of this and to see it happening and, get the knowledge, run with the knowledge, spit it to your friends. But ensuring that even the source is sustained is kind of something that we haven't got into yet in humanity. Like I talked about before, how Earth is really doing a lot of stuff, but how much time do we really spend making sure that Earth can keep doing that? So same thing for, our teachers and those that we get inspiration from. It's really good, those words sometimes, hey, yeah, thank you, you changed my life. But actions, that's the whole reason why words exist. Words were magic to bring things into action. Now you're God. Now, you can actually say the word and you can bring it into action, and people still over here not figuring out what to do. And that's why, my title of this show today is that you do have some clones that are around you. And rather than going in another one of those fake conspiracy theories about, just how they paint it together, it's the serious thing about when you have too many people trying to be like somebody else, they all just end up being like each other, and whoever they're trying to be, they don't do very well. We do have an originality within our fingerprint and the spiral in our head and the one that's on our feet. It is unique to us. So that means that there is something that you had to contribute to this. But if a person just falls into the program, lets the program tell them what to do, then like a cookie cutter, if we're all eating the same thing, we're taking the same jab, we're, believing the same thing, towing the same line, watching the same news, watching the same programs, watching the same TV shows, which is really what's happening. When you look at the numbers, then everybody in that group starts thinking the same. And so when they move that group into do something like cancel culture, turn on the people who are trying to help you the most. They're really the Darth Vader, or they're really and then you go and kamikaze into that being that clone-like behavior. Because this is, of course, I told everybody a long time ago, look, there are books that are 50, 60,000 years old. $50,000-$60,000. That's probably how much it costs to, how long it takes to earn that kind of money. $50,000-$60,000, right? And some may think magical books, that they want to get this magical book and they just need to get that money. And I'm here to tell you, inside those magical books, all they talk about is how to cause division, how to evoke different things to bring more division. So anytime we see the world splitting apart, or us not liking to be around someone, or not being able to connect, or not being able to communicate, or whatever, even if we have to move away from them because we have no other choice, because it would cause further damage if we didn't, we still shouldn't, as adepts, think that we're going in the proper direction. Because there is no such thing as separation. So even when we have to do the act, which is the highest alchemical law, is to split something. Like to be able to divide something, to have the power to divide a soul from a spirit, to divide a ka, this is the real levels of power. But the extreme care that has to be placed with that, that's why you have these occult books and secret societies, the original ones. Because somebody just haphazardly doing that, cutting another person from another with curse words, cursing people out. You notice how they get in and they just start cursing and cursing and cursing. And it's just like what they're doing is they're using this archonic power to slice up a person, divide that person from another person. And it's just like, and then they come back and they say that they're the truth. So what I believe, though, is because this could be very oxymoronic, or what I call, hypocritical, the school of Harpocrates. They talked about this in Kemet, that there was like, the word hypocrite comes from figuring out that you think you know everything on one level, but then you realize that it's exactly opposite to what you know on the other. And then it makes you a hypocrite or a Harpocrate, because now you need to figure out how to bring both of those things into balance. And if you don't bring them into balance, then you just remain polarized. You remain straddled to the wheel. You remain as one of the snakes on the Caudatius staff, which is the black snake or the white snake, either feeling like you're just all too good. Let me show that here. This feeling like you're the best person, that you're the one that's going to judge and condemn the world and tell the world what to do, good and bad, like a binary troll, and never let them get experience. They explained to you already that how this thing came into existence was because the all there is needed to realize what it was, needed to experience itself. And so it's, of course, going to be a contrastual based adventure. You're going to figure out good from bad. You're going to figure out light from experiencing dark. That's the journey. That's a school. That's the university. Why did we enter into the universe or university? We entered in to know more about ourselves. If you have powers already, you have riches already, and you have glory already, and you're born into that, which we were, it doesn't feel like anything to you. Everybody else, other people who don't have it, they may not know what it feels like. So it'll be their benefit because they'll get a chance to experience the contrast. But for you, if this is what you always were like, then the only way you would even come to the awareness of what that is if you forget it. And because we have a weird existence going on here where we birth new versions of us, we make sure that every version of us actually gets that process of the diagram of life. So on the screen, just very briefly, because it sets the pace, is really a code that some have taken completely out of context. As humanity does, every single thing, anything that is very powerful, I'll say it again, anything that is very powerful can either heal or destroy. It never walks into the dimension, because the dimension is a divided plane. It never walks into the dimension as one or the other. It walks in as both. We have a masculine and a feminine side. We are both light and darkness. The beings that don't know about all of that and they're arguing and fighting, I just want to mention for the record, 95% of our problems in this world today come from somebody else not doing what we want them to do. This is the most immature thing. It's what we see babies do. They just, he won't give me my bottle. Or you see how he's talking? Do you see how he's dressing? Do you see how he's doing? Do you see how he's handling his life? Man, if that's demonic. You are completely outside of yourself. You're no longer concerned about yourself, and you're worrying about somebody else externally that whatever they do is going to be their decision. And then we want to know, see, these dangerous powers that humanity has gotten a hold of is because other beings wanted to control or constrain other beings. And they needed the power to do that. They needed to create the power to do that. Now that's as easy as a TV. It's as easy as this stuff that we see in the system right now, with the technology. But back in the day, it took a little bit more initiative. And there were many sorcerers and warlocks that went through that initiative in this act of what is really possession. What is possession? Possession is when you want something to be yours. And when it doesn't want to do that, you try to constrain it or force it to do that with some kind of weird whatever it is that you've cooked up. Now, here's the thing about humanity. Many of us are still doing it. It took me years and years of solitude to even figure out what it was that I was even doing it. Like possessing things around you, like, oh, this is my car. This is my girlfriend. This is my business. This is my... And then all this that belongs to you never leaves with you when you go anywhere. Like it's not really yours. It belongs to something else. It becomes your weight. It becomes the millstone around your neck that drags you down, what everybody else is doing. Now it's so chaotic. Few were prepared to be alone by themselves anyway. Let me pull this off the screen real quick. Few were like, yo, I need to get stimulus every day. We see it when somebody comes to Costa Rica, they're coming out of this New York or LA or Chicago or whatever. And it's just like, so what are we going to do? Let's get the quads. Let's go on this boat, and then we're gonna go on this hike. And it's like, man, why don't you sit down in nature for a moment? Because if it's just, it'll benefit you to walk around the jungle a bit more than it would to be walking around a concrete jungle, walking around a real jungle versus a concrete jungle. But at the end of the day, what it really is that you can't really sit with yourself. You have like a real ADHD where you would need this external stimulus to keep you going. And now it's like, that's like methamphetamine or something. Now you have to wean yourself off of it. So I weaned myself off. I went through withdrawals and everything. Like, oh shit, I just need to go to the mall. I used to just walk downtown just to like get like other people around here. So it takes time to what we call load. Not fire off, but just load. Like take a moment and just kind of dial it all in and just like start asking yourself the real questions and stick around long enough to start answering yourself and, forget about everything else going on that you can't control and all of that process and just to become something new, to become something different. We spoke on in the interversity that, the pattern of energy is to load and to then fire off. Now, we can see that today only in things like guns. But the phi spiral is it coils and then fires itself off. So those are two states that you got to make sure that you're constantly engaging in and that you're maintaining. You can't just fire off all the time, right? Because you just run out of fuel. You can't make your distance, so you got to pull back. And that pull back is like when you go in and when you decide, you know what? It's just going to keep getting crazier and crazier. Where's the good news station? And you're only going to be able to turn that on again when you dial into yourself. And these are the rules and the principles of how to do that. And to me, what this new Esoteric radio series is going to be is about being candid about that. Because I think that our previous segment, because some folks even lost their mind at this point. It's like they just think, again, that they can't get the smoke at all. And it's like, you see what that causes. So when I'm saying this, so I came into the space, I really, really, really dived into the beloved. Like, let's get these people onto the next level. If you eat from the prana, you live in the pranayama, you owe earth because you were here, you went through this experience, help her children. And I dove in. And shoot, we never really came back up for air for a while until we just kept going deeper and deeper and deeper, bringing up folks from all sorts of things that they've been involved in. And then just keep raising the vibration, raising the frequency. And then now, we're sitting here 11 years later, and it's like, okay, we cover completely that hemisphere of consciousness and how to make that ascension really happen from Earth. And we did that in a way where it's like when you dial in, you feel that nourishment, you feel that connection. Some know how to sustain themselves from that. Just being told what exactly is going on, that being articulated very well for them, and then they get to it. But then there's this other group. If you can imagine why your great-great-grandmother and them, they had like this thing where, maybe the belt come out sometime, or they felt like you could get some things accomplished by just telling a child something. But in most cases, you needed to be firm. You couldn't be so soft. There's certain things like love that are soft, that you teach that way. But there are other things like true wisdom that are hard. Like true wisdom is a hard pill for people to swallow. That's why I tell people, true wisdom is akin to like the sun. It's not crying. That's the earth. The sun doesn't have water, and I'm saying metaphorically here because somebody would debate me, son, Sevan, there's water on the sun. I'm talking about as an alchemical measure, which that's why we use alchemy is to define what element is. A fire cannot cry. Now, we're in a conundrum because we're made out of fire and water too. So we could cry and burn that, which creates steam. You see what I mean? But on the real principles of wisdom, being like the sun, what infinitely shines, what knows how to implode, what knows how to nourish others, it's like, when did you ever really see your great-great-great-great-grandfather or your great-grandfather? Some of y'all may have never seen your great-great-great-grandfather yet, but when did you ever see your great-grandfather cry? Why do you think that's always the case? Now they're in this age now, say, well, men should cry too. And, the man you're seeing now is mostly androgynous at this point, making that stage in evolution. So, but we're talking about those original men. They were the foundation. So crying will break everybody else down. So I'm just saying, so like, if you see your parents cry, what I mean here is just to make this very clear, because I'm like, oh man, I don't know how that. If you see your parents cry, doesn't that make you feel worried? Like, have you ever been a child and you see your parents start crying and it just kind of shakes your foundation too? Because you're like, man, if mom and dad can't handle it, man, like this must be really bad. And you start crying too, right? So what we work to do with the foundation, we work to keep the foundation firm. But I can't front. We've had to go back into the foundation at times and move around things and refortify things to make sure that what we're standing on here is solid. And kind of how that plays out even within our community, because we are really a community here. We are really a tribe, is there'll be a culling. Like there'll be a time where, we'll shave off a large percentage of the people who are saying they're about the mission. So here's the thing with all of this. If you're looking for the expansion, not only can you find it here in this YouTube archive, it is here. You can take a trip around Esoteric Radio again if you want to. Nobody's trying to make you pay for it. Nobody's putting what they call a paywall, etc. If you want to jump in with Tribe, though, and you want to actually even show strength and represent, because these are the times. It's not just me you're seeing in there. It's the other beings that are there that came there also for you. We talked about this, on our last Tribe Vibes, that, all these people you see on this screen, when you see us do yoga and those kind of things, all those people you see on the screen are people that you can really connect with, real people. And that in this time, like, look at the other outlets. It's so like, I don't want to name any names here, but it's just like you can't interact. But people text me, they in the group, we're talking, we're laughing. But there has been a price to pay for that. Like, my whole life is in everybody's face most of the time. And then when people are only seeing one side of things, they can try to interpret things the way they want to interpret them. So what I'm saying is, they call that the penalty of leadership. But just because that happens, you can't turn back. I'm not in a position of turning back. Anybody in my way is just going to get rolled over. When this thing shines in front of you, if you're not shining with it, it's just going to burn you. At this stage, we're on this other side now where we have to realize, look, it's time to get serious. We need to be a bit more stern with some of these childlike energies running around here thinking they have all day to ruin the future of infinity for everybody else. Making moves and making decisions that are costing everybody else because they're following you. Even if it's one person. That seems like micromanaging, but geez, like if a person comes into the esoteric knowledge because they learn about Sevan Bomar, then all of a sudden they get sidetracked by somebody else that was with Sevan Bomar, and that person leads them all into crazy stuff. I do feel responsible for that. It's like, man, it'd have been better off to not have done anything to let them go that way. So that's the maintenance. So that's one of the things that you need to understand also about activation, Kundalini, trying to be a leader, all that kind of stuff, is it takes maintenance. Lots of maintenance. 17 hours, 16, 17 hours of my day is not only spent creating new things, but also maintaining what we already have. So when you get this experience in life, right now we're here on average, let's say 82 years. Let's up it a little bit. On average, 82 years. If you had to go in the whole, 20 of those years was gone already because, until you hit 20, 21, and even then, some of y'all 26, I think I kind of start wising up around 28, somewhere around there. So all of that is already gone. And then you just, decide to, all right, finally start storing up for afterlife and getting certain things together. So it's like, this is why they told you that it would take 20 to 30 years for a person to come into enlightenment. You know how when they would take the video in on the monasteries and they would tell, they would ask, so, what's going on? They'd be like, well, he's going to meditate until, he comes into enlightenment, and that could take 20 years. And some are thinking, wow, that system is, it takes a long time. It's a metaphor. What they're saying is no matter where you are, if you're in, I don't know, Tulare, Fresno, whatever, in that atmosphere of your consciousness, because you're attracting what it is that's around you, and that's why you're in that frequency, in that space, it could take 20 to 30 years to actually come into a total level of awareness. I always feel like I'm coming into a higher stage of awareness. So what we're agreeing to is that as a tribe, we're going to be around for the total stage of awareness because we're infinite. And that's what we're doing for each other. So I want to say, again, this cannibalism, which is, again, the cancel culture is cannibalism in many ways. What it is let me eat my brother or let me eat my sister, make myself fat off of them, and then that's going to give me more energy. And let me explain that to you. So you get these people and, let's give it an example here. It's like the clown of the day, because y'all going to stop playing around with me and stop wasting my time, because I also have other things that I need to be doing. We're still working on things that will actually drive power into the physical body remotely and the spiritual body remotely and keep a shield of professional technology around everyone. But at the end of the day, because we're all in the same tribe, you got folks that, when you do something, other people come immediately and say, hey, Sevan, is this really what's happening? Is this you? Is this what's going on? So this guy, Star Seeds Unite, I just want to say personally, I'm not affiliated with this person. I do not know this person directly. So when they're creating websites that look like our logo and then they're posting about even cryptocurrency, man, you could at least even include one of our cryptocurrency videos. Why is it all these other people if you're not trying to just take my identity, which the person said that he wants to take my identity because I'm gone, I'm dead. So it says, oh, James Bomar is dead, right? And then let me finish because I don't have much more time for the clowning. This originally came from the person creating a Instagram, which actually, you know what? I'm going to get that because, like I said, y'all going to stop playing with me because tribe in the space, man, we all we got. And I don't have time. I'm in Costa Rica. That's another thing. Like, it's interesting. Like, actually, let me take a moment because it's interesting because you try to figure out at times what to do in these different situations. You want to be a stand-up person. Like, I've never been a type of person that, I'm going to go and call the police on you or report you to the authorities or, this kind of thing. That's against code where I'm from. But here we are. We're in this stage where you got people that are doing things and you're like, man, other people are not going to protect you. They're not going to stand up for you. They're not going to say most of the time, hey, that's not the person that I even know. They even jump in on it if they want the dish and they want more attention. They like, yeah, I felt something like that. I thought that he was doing something like that. And then when they cancel you, it's crickets. They don't have nobody to teach them nothing. That's all a part of the game. That's all a part of the game that the XYZ, the controllers, have been playing, the Great Reset. Let's divide everybody from everybody by removing them from anybody that can actually help them. Give me a minute. Here. And then pretty soon it's like, yeah, get rid of all of your greats, get rid of all your heroes, get rid of all of your like they do on Avengers, kill all your heroes, and then when you're done, because they're bad, right? And they send that program out there. And then when they're done, you're isolated. You're like sitting there, you don't have no more mentors, you don't have no more people around you. You don't have no more inspiration. You can't go back where you came from because you burned the bridge there, and then you're stuck, and that hurts you. You see what I mean? And this is the kind of stuff, like if people want to know, well, why isn't the conscious community together? Why isn't this? Because this is what's going on in the background. But energetically, what is this energetically? Energetically, when you activate, real activation is both poles. It's not one or the other. You don't do the good. You solve, where it says solve et coagula. You solve the actual good and bad of the two snakes, this is why our word sal, which gives us our word salve, our word serum, which is a formula of curing, our word surgeon, which is a person who can go in and actually begin to go right into an organ and cut off cancers and all this kind of stuff. All those words, even cancer is a reference to snake. So you'll learn in all of this that you got some snakes that have this venom and they bite everything. They poison things. And then you have other snakes that eat those snakes, basically. And this is what you're seeing inside of the entire alchemical text, is how to get rid of poisonous snake bites, how to get rid of when somebody has done something to you and even you feel pain to your heart, like somebody that you love, somebody that you care for, somebody that you did everything for, and then they just, what they call, backbite you. How do you heal from that? And so you only can heal from that once you recognize within yourself, oh, okay, it's because we have these two poles, and where most people are at is they just know about one pole. They just know about that one thing, mainly the good, what they call the good thing, because everything they do is good. I laughed about this today because somebody put in the chat, Cain was a murderer. That's what he put in there. Cain was a murderer, because I was breaking down how Hermes is Cain, is Hercules, is Jesus, is Moses, is, it's the same being. And everybody's just been continuing on in the buffoonery. And the guy said, Cain is a murderer. And I said, so is God. And think about it. What is always happening here is that when it's murdering for us, it's our protector. When it's murdering somebody else against us, oh, it's a murderer. He's a killer. He's the bad one, right? And this is called the two serpents. And what most people do is they be playing around with these two serpents for the rest of their existence. So I'm not into that. I demystified Lucifer, Satan, showed everybody that, look, man, y'all need to do some research. Now, Hermes, Osiris, all the rest is like, come on, how are we even referring to these people as if they're all the same thing when they have all the same mystique? Who's running the show here? And then when I come in, you got to realize what's happening all the time when they send these crash dummies at me is that whole energy that wants to keep lying, wants to keep the division going on, wants to keep from the truth not coming to humanity. That's why they call it the lost word. We'll get into this in a moment, but the word is clearly the family. The word is the structure of the family. So when they call it the lost word, let me just pull that up real quick. When they call it the lost word, what they're really saying is it's the lost family. Like, we can't put the family back together again. The family is always arguing. Our number one question all the time inside of our group when somebody is coming in and they have to fill out the question and answer form is generally, how do I deal with my parents? How do I deal with a family member and them agitating me? So there's division in the household. And that's what I was saying before. That's what these $40,000, $50,000 magical books where they deal with the spells are talking about, is how to create division within this, which is known as the lost word. Saying then by those occult societies that, hey, this family structure is lost and people cannot find it. And then on top of that, when you be thinking, okay, I need to get my external family together, what this is really a reference to is your actual internal family. Okay? Your internal family. Because you have to be able to identify the Yod, which is the light beyond fire. Fire is the shadow of Yod. The fire-based God in the world, the Lord of the world, etc., Yada Baal, the Demerge, whatever you want to call him today, is fire, because fire is a reflection of what's on high. But when people take the Demerge to be God, that's how the Demerge supplants the Most High. You see what I mean? Which is the Most High is a non-confined, bright vibration of high frequency. And when it comes into physical reality, it becomes fire to us, which is the same thing that keeps us warm, but it's the same thing that causes so much anger and contention and all that, because it's on the lower, inverted, mundane level. Then we have the He. The He is a representative of the mother. If you turn that symbol upside down, it's the urn. It holds the energy. And this is what they teach you also in physics and everything else, that the light is being captured, which basically means the light is being put into a vessel or urn, then it becomes static. The particles stop moving around and they start to congeal on one another. So that is the job of the mother. That's the womb, the water, right? And then next is the Va. The Va is the sun, which is actually more of an androgyne. Our English word is actually for sun because we see the sun in the sky, but anything that is generating power has to be, there's nothing here that is one pole. Everything has what you would say is a masculine and a feminine side. So the sun is really a dynamo. And then what comes next is the next he, which is the daughter. That is the lost word in the decoding of the lost word. So what this means is that the lost word is an encoding from the family structure here on earth. This is why other systems such as I Ching, the 64 codons, this does break down into a tetrahedron or a Metatron or what you would say is a Merkaba. And then how it powers itself when it's exploding. Here's another thing that, your favorite of coaches doesn't seem to mention, that when it's exploding, which is dangerous, which is going to hurt others, it powers itself through conflict. However, when it begins to implode, when it knows how to perform the implosion, which is what's in the ancient Hindu texts about how to bring your fields into harmony with each other, into union with each other, then it becomes what you're like seeing in the sky as the sun. That's why the sun is not burning everything up. It knows exactly how much energy. It's conscious. It knows exactly how much energy, how much heat, what to do. It doesn't have a sunset. All of these kind of things are the symbolism behind that. So again, if we go making our sun fake and all this kind of stuff, the sun's fake, I can even break that down to you. No matter how fake this reality becomes due to the craftsmanship and the Freemasonry that's being done to replace the real systems, they are still attempting to keep most of the system plugged in to the original cosmic system because that's what's powering it. And if you come unplugged completely from the original power system, you will be lost. It will be no world. So it's like playing acupuncture with the world where each pin that you put in sticks into the cosmos. But we'll explain that later because we got to deal with this troll. So I'm telling you again, if you see anybody around and it's not my original pages, which everybody knows is at AstroQuest, especially if you see them trying to say that they're involved in cryptocurrency with me, ask me. You can go to the bottom right of the website and say, hey, is this you? And I'm going to tell you yes or no. And generally, you'll know. But this person is now basically emulating me. I think James Bomar is dead and a dark light worker is trying to hijack the community within Secret Energy, but I have most of his truths already in my mind, so I'm going to help others finish awakening and becoming free from this matrix and actually unify. Now, what you said in the end is great. Definitely do that. There's not enough of us, but there's no reason to cannibalize me. I'm here, I'm alive, I'm awake, I'm well. Things are exceptional for me. I'm still on this mission. I'm doing this. I'm alive. Let's mention that twice again. But that the thing is what happens here is that when you spend 11 years doing something for 16, 17 hours a day, it does actually accumulate into actually being something because you put your heart and everything into it. That's the only way you can do something like that. So what's been happening lately, with ones I won't speak of right now, but you're going under the bus after you get served for defamation because I'm definitely serving all of you legally. What happens is that people just should know this. There becomes a time and place for everything. When you spend all of this time and all this energy doing something, you can't do that on your own will. People burn out trying to do stuff on their own will. You got to hook up into the divineness of yourself. That's how you get people saying, hey, you changed my life. That's how you get people saying even things that you said, wholeness and balanced vibration, and you sharing that with them. That's how you get people that saying, yo, man, whatever happens, we in this together. Just let me know what you need me to do. This is friendship in life. It comes with when you put time in. So if you're sitting over there in your mama's house and you don't got no friends and all this kind of stuff, and you're trying to become somebody else, you got to realize what comes with that. It didn't just pop up overnight for me. It didn't come without people even acting crazy on me. It didn't come with times where everybody was telling me that I was wrong about something that I knew was on balance and real. Only to later on get to a stage where most of the people are like, yo, you told us that blah, 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 blah. The same person that was saying it wasn't real. But what I'm saying is it takes time to do this. And what these people want to do is they just want to skip ahead of the line. They don't want to put the time in. They don't want to put the resources in. And they just want to, and then when they do this, because there's other trolls, and that's why I said there's clones and stuff, they trigger these trolls and clones, and then it looks like everybody's with it. And somehow the algorithm on YouTube, because all they want is the dish, it starts trending it even more. I Google my name, and I can't find my channel when I'm anywhere else but in my house. So when they talk about shadow banning, it's a whole nother level. But when somebody else says James Bomar did X, it goes right to the top of YouTube. And it's like, do you know what that's like to have a family, to have a tribe, to be every day getting up in this and like, yo, you know, let's do it, man. What are we going to do? Like, what can we do to just people not giving up? It's like, yo, let's create this, but this may happen. You know, it's like you're kind of exposing yourself, but the people need this. And then to have some trolls talking about you're dead. So that's why I said to y'all that think it's a game, because it seems like it's a product of some come in, they get all the knowledge. All they're here to do is try to get something that they can tell somebody else that they know so that the other person will be impressed. That's all they're in this for. They're not trying to get this for themselves. So they sit in here, and I'm talking to you if you're out there doing this. Stay away from the channel. You can unsubscribe. It doesn't make a difference to me. We had 120,000 subscribers in 10 years. The subscribers was about something that it didn't happen yet. So if you're sitting here and you're just looking for the next wisdom to tell somebody else so you can feel like you're more better than them or more powerful than them, what that's going to lead to is you're going to think that you're more powerful than me. And remember, I'm only in a competition with myself. And I've been doing this for aeons, working on making myself better. So if you think that you're going to be able to compete in this league and all of a sudden that I'm done and I'm over with, this has only just began. Nobody even seen my life, sees my lifestyle, see what I do. I haven't been focusing on me. That's what all social media is made of. People just focus on themselves. They just take the picture of themselves. They take a picture of themselves. And hey, it works. Like I say, I'm not saying anything about it. You know, some folks even got folks wearing necklaces with their picture around their neck. And I've done none of this. I left it all the way open for you to decide what you want to do. And now I'm a cult. Now I'm this. Now I'm that. But what I'm saying is because I'm a real being, I can't really just ignore it. I can't just sit back there all day like it's okay. Just say whatever you want. Namaste. Namaste. Everybody's cool. Don't worry. It's all going to happen in our mind. You can take the shot. Don't worry. It's all in your mind. Hypnosis. I cannot be hypnotized. Your Jedi tricks don't work on huts. You see what I mean? It's like there is not a time where I don't feel like that there is an opposing situation that's happening that I always need to come in with a hermetic rod or staff or a alchemical rod and staff to balance out. So I get that whole thing, but what I am telling you is that the less and less of us here that are doing this, I'm just a vibration, I'm just a frequency, and there are others that are resonating that vibration and that frequency, and we make up a constant. So in the event that I would even feel like, yo, man, maybe it's just time. You already said everything you need to say. It wasn't about really sitting around for everything anyway. Why don't you go on to that next stage where those things are much more beneficial for you? Instead of going with that, which is the voice, every morning I wake up, hey, what's up? Don't you think this has been a long? You sure you're going to get up at this time? And it's like, that's the discipline, because I'm a disciple of myself. I didn't ask anybody to be a disciple of Sevan Bomar. I asked you to take the blueprint and apply it to yourself. So just remember that. Just remember that, because now I always feel like that also, you know, this is what I was saying earlier. So people want you to teach knowledge, but they want the knowledge to be exciting.
And exciting for people changes based on frequencies. That's why I said before, a pager used to be exciting for me. One of them big mobile phones, to even have one of them, man, that would have been exciting. To have an Nissan Altima at a certain stage would have been exciting. To have them 20s at a certain stage would have been exciting. To have them polo boots at a certain stage would have been exciting. To have that earring, maybe even 2 at that certain stage with the hoop and everything, looking like you Jodeci on them, looking like you Craig David on them, would have been exciting. But at the end of the day, 10 years later, it's not exciting anymore. We keep moving through these experiences, and we're actually encouraged to keep going. It's infinite, my child. You need to weather yourself for the journey. And so I feel like the only way I can stay in this is to really let people see that other side of what also is going on in the conscious community, because there are these people now, they don't even want to tune in unless they're going to hear something like, well, who is it now? Is it Umar Johnson? Who is it? Is it Kwame? Is Kwame talking about Stephen Jackson? Is it Charlemagne today? Who's it going to be? FBG Duck? Who is it? And it's just like, man, look at this. I looked at this today. Let me show you something real quick. I looked at this today and I was like, man, my people. Meaning that, we be focusing on this, right? And this is what history pretty much this is what a part of history looks like when you're going in. Meaning that when you're finally getting to the point where you're waxing strong on the physical plane, and now you've achieved immortality and afterlife, right? And then this is why, of course, they want to keep you away from it because it's all about, you get the scraps from the table right now. You get, let's argue. Let's fight with each other over nothing, over dust, right? So check it out. So I was looking at this the other day, right? And I got to blow this up a little bit more just so you can see what is going on here. See, now that we understand alchemy so well, and we understand what actual gems correspond to the alchemical vestments of the 12 gates inside of the consciousness. Give me a minute. I'm trying to line this thing up, and it's just clowning over here. Come on, just grab the edge. So I'm going to just blow this up just a little bit. Let me bring this over here. I guess that screen is just too small. Oh, okay, I see what's going on here. It's stacked on top of another one. Give me 1 second. I just want to bring up a point here. We be over here trying to figure out such petty stuff, beefing with each other on pettiness, and meanwhile the alchemical treaties had already been delivered to the world. I see why in the Emerald Tablet Thoth say he had got tired. He said he need to go and take a break from these cats because shoot, how long? He was probably spending more than 20 hours a day. Let me get the big one. So what you're looking at here, when you understand the gems, now, first of all, behold your Jesus Christ, right? Because you're external Jesus. And when you see just the craftsmanship going on here, man, like I need to get I got another picture. I was going to throw this on the ground today, so I had to cut it off at 750 by 750. Give me 1 second. I'm going to see if I can find a bigger image. But you get the point. The craftsmanship here is basically immortalizing this person because the pattern of you, that's why they created statues back in the ancient days. The pattern of you is your vibration. It is your sound. And when you take the pattern of you and you surround it by very powerful things, then you gain the essence of those things. You share the essence of those things. And this is why you find even altars to this day. You look at the altar and they'll have a picture of the master or whatever there, and they'll be putting flowers around the master. They'll be putting food around the master. They'll be sending well wishes to the master because they're familiar with his soul. I'm talking about if you go into China, if you go into Orient, where they're still practicing the original traditions of respecting their ancestors and their elders, because they know when you identify with the soul of your ancestor or your elder, then you actually will be able to witness them and experience them across time. Right? And what I'm highlighting here is that you see these folks already got their ancestry and everything together. They already took all the stones from the earth, the ones that correspond to activating the vehicles. They already understand how to open up the gates within their own body. See, where they misled everybody is everybody's trying to figure out how to do that externally now. They're trying to figure out how to open up the gates of heaven on everybody, how to command the force of the winds and blow everybody off a mountain, how to burn people and burn whole armies. And, and you'd be thinking, and have you seen anybody be able to do that yet beyond the modern industrial complex, military industrial complex? Have you seen any sorcerers back there with that level of power? Because that power is within, and it applies to a realm that is internal, that is not as illusionary and fake as this one. And you're calling it the dream now. People have crossed themselves over so much into this mundane world, which is what it's called, that they believe this one is more real than the one that is really real. And that's all a play by a jealous God. This is all about jealousy. People had to understand from the moment that they read in these spiritual books that they were dealing with a jealous God. Jealousy is the root to possession. When you see somebody else shining, man, you got to shine with them. You got to be like, yo, what's good? Dap above, do a special handshake, whatever, and just, increase together, because it's great to see humanity continuously expanding and growing. But not jealous people. Jealous people, if you're not doing what they tell you to do, if you're not theirs, if you happen to love somebody else, look at how this works. They tell you that you need to have unconditional love. You need to love everyone, right? And this love is even beyond the definition that people have given it when they put the word love and they try to define what love is, right? The highest levels of love you're supposed to do to everybody. You're supposed to be like that with everyone. But a jealous person doesn't want you to love anybody else. So the moment you start trying to love somebody else, no matter what, even if you just trying to spend a little extra time with him or whatever, that person is going to go nuts. They're going to get angry. They're going to turn on that fire, and then they're going to start destroying and burning things down. Right? So that's what this is a crash dummy. Our ancestors talked about how once we got released from slavery, that this is what was programmed inside of the slaves to self-destruct each other. Releasing of slavery didn't come because folks was marching. Release of slavery came because they were done with that part of the program and that part of the system, and they opened up a new level of slavery. If you thought slavery was done just because people stopped getting paid something that was valuable for their time, we are using money now which has no value for our time. So slavery has not stopped. It has only changed its face. And so now it's like when you go through generation after generation after generation, and this is all you know is to hate. I'm so tired of hearing about this black person, this white person, this Korean, this Chinese, and this. It's like, man, what are you even talking about? Do you even know what you are? You're everything. So if you want to be the original people, that means you need to take responsibility for everything. But no, it's always somebody off the list. And then that level of dissension, that level of confusion is how it creeps in. The jealous one. Jealousy, envy, greed, hatred, sloth. All of those, there's the segue into that is possession. And when you think about it then, because everybody's always trying to figure out who the devil is and point somebody else, and they're the devil, they're the evil, they're the Satan. If the root to all of those kind of energies and what you think those energies are is jealousy, are you ever jealous? So do you see the work that needs to be done? Because anybody that was honest can admit there was one time where it was a little girl you liked, that toy you wanted to have, and you didn't want nobody else to have that color. That's that root. And if you multiply that root by 9 million, the square root of 9 billion, this is how much that force is present in the world. So anytime it triggers somebody, I don't like him too. He's black. I don't like him either. He looks like he's doing good. I don't like him either. I don't even like men. I don't like anybody. Anything that I can jump on the vampire and get a little bit of that energy, I'm onto that, talking my negativity. You see what I mean? This is what we're in now. So what I'm here to do is I'm here to prepare you for being in that. Not to tell you that it's going to end. Does it ever come to an end? Here's the thing. Think about afterlife. Anybody who's over there already, it's not over there looking at you like, oh, what's going to happen to them? They already know you're going to be there. Put yourself into the mindset of a being that is conscious on the other side. When I get over there, I'm not going to be looking at, oh, man, what's going to happen? I'm just going to look at the clock and be like, yo, they got about 4:42 more years. You know, you're looking at your daughter. They got about 42 more years, 5 months, 3 days, 62 seconds, and 32 minutes. Because you know it's coming to you. And this is why we have to juxtapose ourselves to inherit our power. We have to see that you're not waiting on something to happen. You cause things to happen. We're not waiting on anybody. They're coming to us. Eventually, everybody will be aware of this truth, because truth is the only thing that will stand, and all these lies will keep crumbling. And those who tell lies, man, we've had some really fanciful lies going on in the community these days. Especially now, like, look, we build a social network. We build a cryptocurrency platform. We build a system that actually allows you to understand yourself metaphysically, that actually allows you to identify who you actually are in the space. We created a tribe so people can come in and connect and not have to deal with trolls. We created hundreds. There's 638 videos on consciousness from stage 1. We did that for 11 years to be true in this. There are still to this day 3 people that I can say that are trolling the hell out of me right now that makes like 100,000 people seem like, man, they have some sway. So that's why you guys are getting sued. I just wanted to let you know that. That's exactly why, because I refuse to desist from exactly what we have to do here, because there's still more. And what that more is, because I started realizing that, yeah, you know, even though we were able to bring the knowledge and it was expansive, you know, it's still there's a certain way that people learn. They not only learn together, but it also has to be like an adventure. It can't just be, you know, you get the knowledge for the day, even there's some stuff that you like today, and it could just become entertainment unless there's some stay power to it, to where you're like, okay, I'm going to continue on that journey with my folks that are, let's say, my class that have taken and started that journey with me, right? So what you're looking at right now, let me put this on the screen real quick. The new interversity, right? So how this works is finally I've gotten AI to be useful for something. Like, it's crazy how in the past on George Jetson, they were putting off the technology that it was going to be able to solve all of our problems and cure all the diseases. And the only thing that it's done is being able to send us bills more proficiently and get us all into hot water on internet, social media. It has not become the cure of cancer, right? So the AI comes in and says it wants to be able to do this and that and the other. And I'm still waiting. But I found out that I'm able to take a system and have it look over everything that I ever said, and then start serving that knowledge up, but also based on where the person is in their journey, based on what they needed to know what I said last time was. And all that is consolidated into this box where this box right here, where we're going to drop almost 600 and something videos, well, actually probably a little bit more than that, all into a relevant system to that. When you really want to know about lucid dreaming, and every time that I've talked about it, and how long I've talked about it, this is also different than real search for those that say, oh, I was using real search too, which is also extremely amazing. But it's going to be served up to you from the greatest to the least. So by the time you're done, you get it. But more importantly, if you notice how the journey, when I look at the journey, I say, well, you know, we want to be able to actually bring it to a state where, give me one quick moment here, let me pull back. We want to bring the journey to a state where a person that goes on the journey can say, this is where I need to start, though. This is what I need to know, though. I'm at the detox. So what we've been doing is we've been taking these works and a lot of the new stuff, because we realize that all of this over here, like, few have penetrated all of this, and it's juicy. Like, it's not on YouTube, but when you get in here, it's 150 some odd videos. Bam, like you can hit it like Netflix and just let it roll, right? But some just, you know, it's like these generally are long format, 2.5 to 3 hours. So it's a lot, right? But there's a lot going on, and this is a summary of that. So what we decided is that we would start the journey. And in the journey, if you wanted to know about how to advance your relationship, if you wanted to know about how to really work with manifestation from start to finish, if you want to know about the activation versus the ascension, which is 2 totally different things, and actually one should definitely be done first, if you want to know how to get the sovereign mindset, right? And then some are on that other field, they're like, well, I only know you for the money side. What's up with cryptocurrency, especially right now, and et cetera, et cetera. We're here in the space, and there are groups surrounded around everybody in this space in order to help them get through this process. And then also we see you going through the process, and when you're able to assist others, which will be the next demo that I show maybe on the next Esoteric Radio, when you're able to assist others, we give recognition for that, and we watch you on your progress. And when we know that you have reached that certain stage where you're ready to bud again, but it seems like there's some type of stagnancy, we're just going to lift you up, because that's what we created soul coaching for. So yes, it took years to build this, because it's like you get one or two people sometimes. It's been crickets sometimes. And we're still on this. Like we won't desist on this. We're not going away. You know, if you're going to go away, you go away in the first year. You look dumb going away on year 11. So let's just be very clear that I'm here and I'm working on something. But now, since I'm pretty much done with that something, I'm about to light this social media up in the world, because this still is the conduit in which we reach the world. Like, I was a bit surprised about how many people that have been actually tapping into the network. You know, I mean, there's sometimes I go places and then somebody like, are you Sevan Bomar? And I'm like, maybe YouTube is lying on my numbers, because technically this many people shouldn't know me. I also will say, if you are a lawyer, contact us in the bottom right corner of Secret Energy, because we're always looking for more lawyers on different levels of how we need to fortify ourselves. I want to make sure that somebody told me the other day, it's like, well, you know, you need to get people around you that already know who you are and already a part of what you're doing, because there's so many professionals in your group. So again, if you handle that kind of things, hit me up. And I'm not going to ask for anything for free either, because I have your retainer and everything. But there's some folks that they're going to have to learn the hard way. And the reality also is that the reason why this is, I don't want to use the term simple, but the reason why I do trust this process is because I know what I'm doing. I'm in the jungle. I'm not downtown. I'm not at your strip club. I'm not doing any of those things. Not that it's your prerogative either to tell me what I should be doing, but I'm saying I know what I'm doing. I'm in Costa Rica. I'm in the jungle. I'm going in on this, and I have enough recordings to actually count for pretty much all of my hours of the day, damn near. So that means that when somebody else is saying that I'm this or I'm that, I can't believe them. You see what I mean? This is how it gets so crazy. Look, I'm going to show you this in your own life. If you have a parent, right, or somebody that you respect, and they keep telling you that you're dumb, you're going to start feeling like you're dumb. Do you get how that works? This is this whole thing that we're dealing with now. That's why they like to group people into bigger groups, like it's all the black people or it's all the white people. Because then once they start generalizing and then they start making those statements and they're all like this, you start asking yourself the question, like, am I like that? And if you have a weak mind, of course, that person starts getting depressed and feeling like, especially if they go outside and somebody looks at them like, you're a racist. And it's like, whoa, I mean, I'm not, you see what I mean? So what I'm saying is that what I'm experiencing in my life is no different than what others are experiencing. And what we need to understand is that if we're going to create a space where it's not okay to do that, then it takes us, each of us, to enforce that space. And it also takes us to be accountable for what we're doing. And that's why I said before, my job here is to bring the knowledge and the wisdom and to make sure that it's exact. If something starts happening and it starts interrupting my ability to do that, I'm going to get somebody else with another job, and I'm going to have them take care of that so that I can keep doing what I need to do in the clarity and in the state of mind that I need to do it in. So I just wanted to be very clear that, yeah, some of y'all got it coming. Now, the next thing here is that I wanted to take an opportunity, because this is that was 1 hour of a prelude of why. Until this show segment ends of Esoteric Radio, no telling how long it's going to go, there's going to be some exposure. I'm exposing y'all fake aliens. I'm exposing y'all fake psyop operatives that like to play around with psyops like the flat earths and all this kind of stuff and just distract people from everything they're supposed to be doing. I'm going to show proficiently what our ancestors have said throughout time everything really is, which is going to put some people on blast, because they're going to be basically saying opposite to what the ancestors said and to what you can see every day in the blueprint. And what I feel like that will do is it'll clean up the space a little bit, because also I didn't get in here for 11 years to just let it all go to waste. We don't see anybody really no more, meaning that it's just weird on YouTube. It's like, what happened to the people that, like, consciousness was budding? I mean, we had everybody in this space. I mean, there was Till Swan. I mean, what was the Infinite Waters? I mean, there was Santos Bonacci, you know, back when True Frequency Radio smashing it. And, you know, it's like Kata Gaia. What happened to all of us? What do you think happened? Psyop after psyop after psyop. And then also remember, if a person wasn't applying the alchemy within, it was like nothing but chaos, not understanding how to resolve the chaos, trying to fight with everybody, you know, the master versus the disciple. So this has been the conscious community. It's the Clone Wars. Somebody says something, and next thing it's on Gaia TV. What is his buddy's name? Benito Masuro. He's going to be a special episode. I sat here and watched this guy make a video that keeps being marketed to me on YouTube. So somebody said, well, man, why you? Because he won't stop marketing to me on YouTube. Talking about how he was a black woman in Kemet. And he was performing all this magic for the Pleiadians. And that Thoth came to him, and I'm like, homie, come on, man. Do you know what you're saying? Do you know what lineage and what kind of beings and what kind of people, what kind of legacy for a couple Gaia TV commercials and a few, man, I subscribed to Gaia TV, man. I was like, man, is any of this new? But I'm just saying, it's like, if nobody's going to say anything, then it's right, because that's what happens. See, it used to be, what do they say, innocent until proven guilty? No, now it's guilty until you prove yourself innocent. This is what we're living in. People say stuff about me, and if I don't get up immediately and say, oh, no, that's not what I'm doing, that's not what I'm about, then it starts following. You start seeing the unsubscriptions. Folks saying, hey, remove me from the site. I don't never want to be around you again. I can't believe you did that. And I'm like, did what? Work my ass off, try to help you, give you the blueprint, take care of your kids, keep you stabilized in through the whole pandemic, give you tips on what should be done in the future. What did I do? You see what I mean? So that's what I'm saying. It's like the only way that clears out, because I told Jeanette today, I said, you know what? What's happening is this, I need some exhaust in this creation. I'm creating a lot, like a car. I'm driving a lot, but there's no exhaust. I don't have time, or I don't have the time, sometimes the energy to vent. Here's what's really going on, though. I just immediately go into the solution. Like when I was seeing the fakeness over in these platforms, I was just like, all right, well, you know what that is. You need to get the solution together, and that's what I've been spending my time doing. Like I said, now I'm done. Pretty much. It's almost complete. And so now I have opportunity to focus back in on the conscious community, since it's thin in the ranks right now. Nobody's bringing pretty much anything new. It's the same recycled stuff. You go into the interversity, it's all new. We was on some new stuff yesterday. Let me show you. What were we discussing yesterday? Or what was that? Friday, excuse me. We were discussing how what the craft is, which is now termed the Masonic craft, is to manipulate the watchman, or basically the points on Earth that actually control the Earth or the planet, because these are the same points that control everything on your body. So you would see them as like acupuncture. This is the meridians of your body. And then when something pokes into one of those meridians, it channels energy from one area into the other area. So what they generally do is they use a warlock or somebody that's in a higher rank, and they put them in a specific state, and they put, or a specific place. They also use a TV and programs to do this. And then they take everybody in that group and they put them under a certain stage of consciousness. So they make them believe something specifically. And what that does is that moves them into another position. Now, this, what you're looking at is, because let's say, for instance, you're looking at a two-dimensional version of it, it's plugged into the cosmos like a clock. It fits into a cog, so that the cosmos is infinite. It's going to keep running. But so when this plugs into it, this will run because of the power of the cosmos. So when they say as above, so below, they keep most of the main pins in place. But then they remove certain pins to create a different form of reality for everybody in that area, which can bleed into others' reality. Okay? And that's called the watchman. Right? So why is that important? Because not only does it let you see how when people are manipulated externally, that it's changing the earth externally, but also that the body internally, which we're more concerned about, we don't got time to be chasing these jerks around infinity. The internal body has these same points. They have gateways, and you need to know the password or the passcode to get through the gateways of yourself. And we cracked that because in the Gateway series, they talked about how one hemisphere of the brain is what's dictating everything that you believe and what you know. While when you disable that hemisphere of the brain, which they do sometimes in hypnosis, you can tell the other side of the brain stuff like, you're strong enough to lift a car. And sure enough, the brain will pick up a car and throw it and lift it over. You don't need to breathe. The person will sit there for minutes upon minutes. You know French. The person will start speaking French. You see what I mean? So there are gateways, and the reason why people can't get through those gateways is because they don't have the password or the passcode to themselves. But there's also an external machination. We call it the machination. This is when the builders that came to the earth, which are Freemasons, this is what Pierre Sabak talks about. They're the ones that were in the vehicle of the moon. Thoth used to drive that boat also. Like there's deep knowledge still to be revealed here. Bought all the times, the seasons, and basically the split on the earth, so that way the alchemical measure that had been performed in heaven would then be performed on earth. So nowadays they run around with the Baphomet symbol. Baphomet is none other than Hermes. It's just a point of every single wildness of nature that you can't imagine. Here's a goat, here's some titties. That's just two totally different ballparks, but that's how nature is. It's in all these different ballparks, and when you look at it, you're afraid of it because you're afraid of yourself. And everybody's talking about, he's doing this to me, they're doing this to me, this is happening to me, because you're in fear. Nobody can do anything to you but you. Do you know most of the stuff that we're still afraid of has yet to happen yet? But at the same time, most people will sit in hours and hours, day upon day, thinking about things for year after year that never occur. That's why I said the problem is what we're doing in our mind about others. And so now that comes into a resolution point. What was another thing we were talking about? We were talking about how, this is the last thing I'll show because you catch the episode yourself. What you're looking at, just like I explained to you that, these people run around talking about the earth is flat and all this kind of stuff, they have no knowledge of geometry, period. Every time they say it, they only show just how much more ignorant they are to what they say they know. Because you should know that anytime you get certain geometric fields, when those fields start moving around, they create an orb or a sphere. When we start moving around or conflicting, which is what the two serpents on the staff are doing, they're in conflict. When we start conflicting, it generates a ball of energy. That ball of energy is similar to a sphere. If you keep going and drilling into every single thing in systems that are created like that, you'll see the same thing when you finally get down with a scanning, tunneling, drilling microscope and see what that original shape is. It is a tetrahedron, a circular one with bent angles. Okay? So because of that, that's called the machination. It's around the body. It's like your skin. It's a cognate of your skin. It's an artificial skin. It's an interface. It's a derma. It's a dream. It's a snake. You see what I mean? It has to be shed for you to be awake. Okay? But until then, it wraps or coils itself around the body. So what we were showing is that in the movements of the sacred letters, H, or what we would say is YH, or in this case, IHVH, right? Because there's no Y in these ancient languages, only I is also the J, which is where we get Jehovah, etc. But IHVH, we found that the movement of these particular patterns evoke different things. Some bring greatness, others bring severity. Now, this is not about becoming an external sorcerer. It's about actually realizing this power within, because then you're intoning. You don't even got to say anything. It's just your awareness of it. But until then, Metatron, as they're calling it today, this external field they built around the planet, which you're calling the grid, is wrapping around the planet. And it's suffocating the planet. This is the same thing they say is like, that's why people are wearing the mask. When you let archons out, you start living in a world that is not the world that you want to live in. They drink gas. You die when you drink gas. They're on a whole different thing. So when you look at these things, you got warlocks who evoke, this is HIV, which is when you take the generative component off of YHVH and then you reverse it, which creates a formula for death. It's called HIV. HIV looks like this under a scanning, tunneling, drilling microscope. What is it doing? It is that tetrahedric field fractalized, because everything is the tetrahedric field. Then it wraps itself around the cell or the organism and it locks in place, right? So again, new stuff all the time. Why? Because the well is infinite. Knowledge is infinite. Right now, we're really just about the knowledge that is going to assist us the most in this experience, because you can't cover all knowledge in a lifetime or in the physical plane. So preserving that, do you see why this would be so important? I'm just saying, just take a moment. Like, how many people are in the chat today? 729 of you. Thank you. Do you see why this would be so important? Do you see why they will be wanting to agitate me all the time? It's not the same as everybody else and everything else. We created something different. We know how to penetrate any secret mystery that's out here and clarify it inside of you. We're not talking about, well, go worship YHVH. You will be worshiping Yaldabaoth. And you will come in just like any Mason that enters the building right now. He comes in at the bottom. Basically, he's only good for fees. And in Freemasonry, if you don't got a lot of money, you don't even get up into certain ranks. And in Freemasonry, you can buy your way into certain ranks. But there's so many other builders, hundreds of thousands of men that came before you. You will be like a slave underneath them. It is the biggest spiritual pyramid scheme ever. So do you see why anyone coming in there? I knew one guy, my friend, he said he couldn't resist. He just went in there and joined. He felt like he watched too many of the videos. So he was like, fuck it, I might as well, if you can't beat him, join him. He went in there. Every now and then I check him, I'm like, yo, what's good? He said, man, could you believe I don't know anything yet? They have not taught me anything that I have not found much more on YouTube. But I'm paying these fees, though. How did you expect to come into something with nothing and get something? People in there work the same way they work out here. People don't want to deal with you unless you have something to give them. We're the only ones giving gifts most of the time here. Here's real wisdom. Here, come in with the affiliation. We're inventing products. We've invented hydrogen. We're rolling with the winners. Here's a profit share for you. Here, we're going to raise it even higher. But how many people know about this? Did this go viral? It ain't been on World Star. Do we not see this? It's because it's up to us to preserve it. It's up to us to protect it and to see how valuable it is to our children. Because if all they're hearing about is Charlemagne, Alexander the Great, Darius, the Anunnaki, AI, and they're never hearing about themselves, how would that make them feel? It would devalue them. They wouldn't feel like they had any value. Right now, the biggest issue is people think they have less value than even the dollar. They calculate their value with how much money they have. So when they start running out of money and they don't have anything around them that they really value, that they at least spent that money on what is valuable to you, you can't eat gold. You can't eat silver. So the reality here is that, yes, it's a big game being played, and it's a high stakes game. And people are back there silent, to know, to dare, to will, to keep silent. And I'm not under that oath. I'm not sworn in it. I'm born in it. James Evans Bomar III. Get it right. 10/22/78. Get it right. It's like when you look at the numbers, when you look at the name, do you think that I'm going to wait for another life to try to roll dice again to see if I'm going to land on the same configuration? This is my third time. I'm a third. Do you think that I think that I'm so cocky and know so much that I'm going to fuck up this life and not go all the way, not tell the truth as it is and stand in the truth? And the truth ain't your good and evil thing. I mean, it's not just you need to be the best person you need to be and do what you need to do and uphold righteousness and blah, blah, blah. Man, you need to figure out who you are and get in alignment with yourself. Because you ain't going to start off in any of those states. You're going to have to take yourself from where you are. And guess what? We lower the spaceship, even if we got to go to the underworld, and bring that ladder right to where you are. Why do we do that? Because, man, in the event that something even beyond our control happens, we trust that what we gave out as an essence will be returned to us. I may be spinning off in a vacuum as just a soul had missed a complete transfer, and then see a tether come out and be like, yeah, but still, man, you did this same thing. These are the principles that I live by. What I am is what is going to be. That whole thing is like, they think they know the tetragrammaton. They say, somebody said in the comment, yeah, it means I am that I am. I said, but what does that mean? Have you told me anything? Who is the I am? That is a statement that you need to understand what the power is to something like that. It's not just the empty words. It's basically when something that is omniscient and immovable makes the first act to try to look at itself. First asking the question, who am I? That's the first one. That question triggers off infinite wheels when you're on any kind of substance. So it'll do it when you're on the meditations if you know how to do it right. Who am I? And you just go on one. Right? And then if you try to get back, you know what I mean? Then you get revealed to you, your greater self. You feel like, man, I am that I am. I am that I am is the answer to the higher self being bothered by the lower self. Keep asking the question, who am I? Man, look, I am that I am. Stop asking the question and get busy. Take what I taught you and start working with that. Don't be sitting back waiting on the next level of entertainment. But at the end of the day, like I said, time draws nigh. You had to expect that there was going to be a return. There's a bunch of Jedi returns going on around the space right now. A lot of folks is waking up. And I trust that as the end of the projection showed, everyone came into the awareness of it. I still see, all of this stuff happening around us, and it looks like we're getting further from the truth. But the vision that I saw showed me that at some point, everybody came into the awareness of the truth. And that happened in my lifetime. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to keep bringing it. And if it takes, now you got to add showman onto it. You got to add a little dish. I was listening to something the other day in Clubhouse, and it was a guy, and he was just, he had already succeeded in the whole social media thing, right? And he was basically trying to start a rehab for creators in social media, because he mentioned that, see, the issue with social media is there's always got to be a quarrel, just like you see in that pattern. There's always got to be an explosion of some sort for people to want to see that. Because when you explode, you vibrate them. When you implode, you only vibrate things that are inside, right? So people want to get that. And they say, so what happens is when a person starts creating social media, when they start realizing this, it first starts off with the clickbaits. And then pretty soon it starts off with trying to find out what other people are doing to enlist that kind of response. Then it goes on where the person starts doing things that are not even like them or what they even want to do. Then it comes to the point where they feel like they need to do anything. And we've seen some that are like that at this point. And then what happens is they reach a stage, because all of us get older, the maturity happens where they regret the things they did because they now have to pay for them. They don't just go away. And just like a newspaper, because the newspaper got to come out every day, they got to do crazy stuff every day that they're later on going to regret. People they're going to burn, people they're going to hurt, things they're going to do, and they're going to regret that. So he said, but unfortunately in social media, if people are not seeing those things, then you get forgotten. So this is why it's so hard for me to go forward with being inside of this field. This is what the guy said. Now, see, I'm not in social media. I use this tool. If I was in it, I would have more than 26,000 subscribers on Instagram, and I would definitely have more than 100 and some thousand on YouTube. What I'm into is something of a hybrid, where I utilize social media, because when I'm trying to talk to one person at a time in a physical about this, it doesn't seem to actually get it projected enough. But we use it to actually get others aware of this knowledge and this wisdom. But since I don't even think this is going to last too long, meaning this whole social media thing, when you understand the Great Reset and you already see there's a new internet project and it's verified by everybody's identification, and then it just trickles on down the line with your phone and all that, and when they vote you out of the system, your phone cuts off, your computer, your shit cuts off. We just need to make the best of this right now. I told you, be sovereign. Work on your sovereignty. You can buy solar panels, batteries, and inverter boxes on purse.io with your cryptocurrency earnings if you took profits. Take profits. We put a system together that takes profits. It's a math game. Even when big dips, at best, you just break even, but you're still invested. You see what I mean? So it's like, that's the internet's own dad, the real internet's own dad, or the internet's own elder. Like, here's what you're going to need to do in 2021. I'm not here to tell you you did it all wrong. I'm not here also to tell you you did it all right. What I'm here to tell you is how to get it moving, how to actually be able to control it. What is it? You. Master over yourself. It's going to benefit you through infinite potential, infinite levels. So if you have a question, you can type the letter question. You could type the word question. We got 30 minutes. Rapid fire. You type the word question. I bring the question up on the screen if the question is worthy of the time. I think I'm going to have to turn into, in certain respects, to a cross between, what was buddy, David Goggins and Kevin Samuels. I know y'all would like to see that. About spirituality. Anybody may want to put their hand up if that's what you want to see. David Goggins, because you know how blunt he gets, right? Or is it Michael Goggins? What's his name? But, you know, he's wild. He's like, man, you're lazy. Look at you. What are you doing? Get off your ass. You got fingers and you got toes. I've seen people outperform without those. You're over here emote out. You're acting like the whole world is over. And that's just in your little neck of the woods. Understand, you probably got warlocks and watchmen all around your neighborhood, especially if you're in Atlanta. Like in Atlanta, there's so much work. I was like, this is ridiculous. Like, you can't go nowhere without some weird writing on something and stuff that's spray painted in black paint that you can only see on lights, and stuff going on in the sewer, and another Georgia on the other side. And it used to be the old Atlantis, and there's so much work going on there. It's like, it's really cloudy in those kind of fields. So, you know, bringing yourself into this space. So let me see. I'm still waiting on your, yeah, Kevin did make it. He did. There's a formula there. Anything that makes it, there's a formula there. You know, because yes, there are people who they learn things without getting talked to like that, right? And this is where the contention that's coming with him, because he's talking to the women like that, and this is disrespectful, blah, blah. But there are some people that they only learn like that. So it's very useful. And this in the world thinks it's useful, and this is why the energy is contributed to it. So I think it's very useful to give the enema to the conscious community at this stage, since it means our lives. You know what I mean? If you mess up on a little relationship or whatever, yeah, that can end your life. But if you mess up on your soul, this can mess up your infinity. So why would I, since there's still free platforms, you know, you might as well enjoy it now, sit back and at this stage in the game, allow all the rest of the buffoonery to still cloud the ultimate truth, seeing that we actually found the ultimate truth now. And it's you. We also found the enemy, and it's you. So, you know, either way, you're still in power. So someone's saying here, let's get to it. Someone's saying, here it is, wholeness. Again, I would love to be nice, but it's Kevin Samuel's time. Now I'm feeling stuck. How to move on? Look at what's going on around you. When a wheel gets stuck, it's because something is lodged around it, right? And you can say at times, as we've mentioned, that look at some of the things that you're doing. Nobody else knows. You're probably beyond reproach. Somebody tells you, hey, you need to do X, Y, Z. You may go off on them. I'm doing, you need to get your... You see what I mean? So this generation is beyond reproach. So somebody try to come in and assist you with not being stuck, you may go off on them. So now you're responsible for getting yourself unstuck. It's not just this radio recording where I'm going to give you this formula. You got to go after this and begin to apply it. And as I said before, when you're losing life force, especially from conflict, when you're arguing, when you're fighting, you're going to lose life force. You don't really have the opportunity to fight the real battles within. Very clearly, they say that the heart, it produces a nectar. But it's only able to produce that nectar when you're feeling content, when you're feeling happy, when you're, okay, this feels good. We good? Yeah, we good. Man, I love this. When is the last time we saw that? Also, you sometimes won't even just be able to blame your own self, even though you'll ultimately have to take fault, but the vibration around you, other things happening, it's more chaotic than ever. And this is why you need yourself more now than ever. So you get unstuck by dislodging things that you know are keeping you in the same pattern. You are a wheel. And so if you're stuck and you're not rolling, there's a pattern that you're in, and you need to move from that pattern. And you got to do that analysis. Listen to some of the music you may be listening to. If that music is not pushing you forward, or it's keeping you back in that old time, girl, I remember when this came out. Hey, this is my song. Remember, this is when you're choosing to go back to that and pick back up on that frequency. So you need to change those vibrations around you. It's all in environment sculpting. If you know what you're already going to expect when you walk into a situation, you're already there in that situation. So if you expect to see something different, you don't go there anymore. So these are formulas of getting unstuck. And if you want to invest in yourself, I can't say it enough today that this is not the one-liners. But if you see it, if you're saying, okay, look, I really want to know how to get unstuck, I'm ready now. I'm telling you, if you go into ambassador training, sovereignty mentorship for 1 month, and you're really about that life, that transformation is going to take place, because I know I put everything there that you will need. And you're going to go through that process 1 month, and you can just unsubscribe. Like, shoot, that's it. I got what I need. I'm gone. And that'll be great. But remember, there's real things you need to do to actually get unstuck. But it is, use metaphors. The wheel is stuck. What's that little wedge? What's that little wedge that's stopping the wheel? That's wedged into my chakra centers, because this is like your chakra centers are wheels. They're your planets. Where am I leaking at? Because that's what happens when a wedge or a cone is poked into your chakra center, you start to leak. And this could be, again, anybody. It's always somebody else, but you'd be surprised what's coming through that somebody else. And to be able to shift a pattern and get out of that whole thing, it's just like you already know what to expect. You could predict the future, so move in a mysterious way. For me, just to let y'all know I'm on you, it used to be when people would say stuff, I just ignore them. Now it's going to be on point to me making sure that they don't utter my name and deface my name and my honor. Because it's very important to me. My name is very important to me. It belongs to me. It's what I put my heart, energy, and work in. I also have 2 daughters. So in the future, they may hear somebody say something, say, your father did X, Y, Z. This is what we're missing right now in our legacy. Like I don't have a whole yearbook or whatever, they family book. Here's your great great grandfather Arnold in the Prussian War. I don't have any of that. You see what I mean? So you tell me, oh, you're not, then the mind control. Oh, but you don't need any of that. That's all ego. Meanwhile, you leaving kids here. Do you know there's people here on the world today that will forever be taken care of because of what their father did and what their father's father did? Or their mother or their mother's mothers did? You know why that happened? Because that person wasn't selfish. That person was actually looking out for the beloved. That person was saying, we need to create some generational stability here. We need to bring arts and crafts back into the family. We need to hire a musician at least to teach this child. We need to teach them the arts. I need to take them out and spend this day with them and teach them how to be a man. I need to teach her how to dress. I need to teach them how to see, because those things that we learned, it gave us a different culture. It gave us the ability to have respect. And that's the only thing, because that's discipline. See, the reason why, like I said, the self-destruct mission was already when slaves were released to self-destruct. And our ancestors said the only way we're going to keep them, this is your elders, from self-destructing themselves is if we give them extreme discipline based on what they just came out of. They already have so much damage. They're mentally damaged, spiritually damaged. So if they don't have discipline, they'll be all lost for them. So then it was real strict. You don't talk when grown folks are talking. You don't come around here with your mouth poked out. You say yes, ma'am. You say no, ma'am. See, that was to make sure that you didn't self-destruct, because in some people, they may deny that. This is the same thing that we're doing in spirituality right now. The way that you really wax strong and get into a whole nother level of your consciousness is through discipline. fasting, these kind of things. So it's the same formula. Our ancestors put that discipline, our elders put that discipline there. But now, my child, that discipline is gone. And we have to work with folks that don't even say good morning. We have to work with people that you give them a platform and give them a stage to be mentioned and to be amongst in honor with others that are honorable, and they backbite you and they backbite everybody else and they betray everybody else. These are the times. And the only thing we can keep doing is we only can keep designing things that weed that out. But that means also we all have to be responsible. Because when that's not the status quo, when somebody says, hey, no, that ain't it, man, you need to take this down, man. No, this ain't it, man. What do? They start feeling, oh, my goodness, everybody's not hating, everybody's not loving me. I thought that I was going to be able to get at least 400 more subscribers off of him. Let me take it down. You see what I mean? So you don't stand for it. So protect your elders. Next question here, so understand, you have that opportunity in time with yourself. Let me open this up so I can scroll through this because my scroll bar is just non-existent on this. Where's the scroll bar at? I think these questions just started getting crazy. Give me 1 second. I'm trying to get a scroll bar here. I can do that. Man, they don't give me no scroll bar. Hold on a second. Let me try to click up or something. All right, well, it looks like I'm going to need some moderators next time. So I have to deal with the question as they come through until I figure out how do you scroll up in this thing, which is not showing me. So the next question here is, and I'll try to, if you had a question, go ahead and throw it in again. And let's try to throw out the questions. I guess we have to moderate ourselves on this one, but and maybe somebody can copy and paste some of the questions earlier. But if you see a bunch of questions, just kind of hold off for a minute just till we can get through a couple questions until I figure out exactly how to scroll in this thing. In fact, let me see. That's the chat for them. Let me try. Okay. All right. I have a secret to how to scroll up on something that doesn't want to scroll, and it's that you start highlighting everything in that area and you move the thing up. And that works. So I've gotten that to work, but I would love to be able to make this go up and down. Let me see. How can you want to get cold there near? So let me answer this question here that's on the screen. So it says, how does one master astral travel, internal travel to and from the vortex? Okay. Now, here's the thing about this. If you're having trouble paying your rent, it could be very difficult to master the astral travel in the vortex. What I'm saying is, just to be very clear, is when we're asking to do these kind of things, I can tell you that for most people, when they get into that space, they would feel extremely uncomfortable with that kind of thing. They would go through a process that first would feel like death. And if they didn't try to bring themselves back to life and they allowed that feeling to go through and realize you don't breathe on the astral plane, then they would make it into a space. And then from that space, you need to be able to know how to bring up the symbols that correspond to where you're traveling and where you're going, which are vibrations, right? So even when we're saying to travel from the vortex, this is almost like it's us reading certain books or listening to certain people, and then we just say, well, I'm just going to travel the vortex. And this is just like saying, well, I'm just going to travel Earth. Well, like what part of Earth? There's Chicago, there's Mogadishu, there's different parts. And then not to mention, where are you going? Why do you need to go there? Why do you want to travel into this space? So it first starts with to get to this level, because this is like more of ordainment from yourself. It's when you decide, your higher self says you're ready to start making these travels. And before then, what you're doing is you're going through a process of coming into balance with yourself. I can't stress this enough. If you're still saying things like, I hate them, I can't believe they're doing that, they shouldn't be. When you're still in that field, you still haven't solved the two serpents, as I mentioned before. You haven't diffused them yet. And so thus, this kind of energy of traveling into other spaces, it can't turn on. It's like half of you will get stuck on this side, and that's the half that would be like your perception of things. So you would go into a space as if you would be there, but you would have no perception that you were there. This is like going into a dream, and then when you wake up, you don't even remember the dream, because half of you was here and half of you was experiencing the dream. So that half of us that we generally need to activate has to do with the understanding that what we call dark or what we call negative is not what we call evil or distorted. What we call dark and what we call negative is not the same as what we call evil and distorted. And what this means is negative is a pole on the battery. Dark is what happens at night, which is a very generative process. If it was sun out all day, people would not get any sleep. So in a Catholic state of mind, as I mentioned, in a binary state of mind, is always let me find the good one and let me find the bad one. And what that then does is it doesn't allow the systems to come together and to unite, so there can be no travel. So there's a process. It's a process that one has to go through to finally get to the stage of being able to say, yes, I'm truly out of judgment and focusing on myself. Because remember, and I'm going to turn this on over here so I can do some scrolling the questions inside of YouTube. So you hear something real quick, but now I have a scroll bar. So it's that. Let me move these closed captions. It's us getting to the ability of being able to fess up to ourselves that some of the things that we're asking for is way up there to where we're asking from where we're at right now. And it's a good idea to climb the ladder. Like we have in the Ascent series, you start off in the netherworld, getting humiliated because people are not even respecting you and, not even giving you the credit that you deserve. So now you have no choice but to load back up and go in yourself and drop a lot of weight, getting rid of people that are around you that are not allowing you to vibrate in the pace that you need to be vibrating at. They're always going to be with you within, but externally they may need to, get up out of here. I gotta get to something else. And then you start walking up the ladder of learning who these entities really are, these energies really are, because they're inside of you. Then you're developing a relationship with yourself. People think they know themselves, but they don't know what they would even be knowing. So it's like identifying, what are you knowing? What is it to know the heart? What is it to know your spleen? But more importantly, what is it to know the elements in your body, the fire, the earth, the water, how to elicit the kind of feeling that connects with that energy, how to identify that energy inside of you. Because that's your rudder, that's your thing that you're using, your joystick, if you may. That's what you're using to steer yourself through into this travel. But it's not like, oh, I'm flying over here now. It's more like I'm projecting into this space about this thing. So you move with purpose. You don't just show up there like, okay, what are we going to do today? It's more of like, this is what I'm going to do. This is how you know, okay, here's another a gym. Here's a gym that will solve it a little bit more clearly for you. The alphabet, the letters of power in the alphabet are the vowels. The letters that hold the energy of the power of the vowels are the consonants. How you know that is you cannot say any consonant for a prolonged period without putting your throat under some type of strain. Every consonant needs a vowel to continue it. So let's take an example. Let's take the word B. If you made the sound of the B, it would be P, and you're done. To keep extending it, you need the E. B. And when one is doing that properly, you feel your chest, your heart vibrate, your solar plexus all the way up to your throat vibrate, all the way up into the tip of your head and your crown chakra vibrate. It's a series of vowels and consonants that make a vessel in order to be able to bring something into the space, because every tone and vibration that's brought into the space has life, especially when it's spoken from a mouth that has power. And that power does not come back void. But if you run out all your power in conflict and you don't know how to sustain that, then you don't actually have the life force that's necessary to manifest the things that you're vibrating. So just in that awareness that there's one that's the power and there's the other that holds the power, you are once again taken to the symbol of the yod and the he by itself. There is that active principle, which is energy that fills everything, but by itself, it has no containment. Energy can fill everything, but by itself, it has no containment. It needs a container. It needs a vessel. So the consonants are the vessels. So with this awareness, you can see then that if you don't know that, here's another thing about things you don't know, because of course, the community has gotten super cocky. They know everything, right? Yeah, you know everything. You knew it from birth. You don't need a teacher. More mind control. It's just more mind control. The reality is that, yeah, but knowing everything, like, it's a lot. And when it needs to be recalled, some of us may forget exactly what needs to be recalled, right? What word needs to be resaid? You're running around calling yourself by one-syllable names. Frank. You see what I mean? It's like, where's your power at? So if you don't know about it, so let's say, for instance, with 3D printing. If you don't know anything about 3D printing, I can put you right in front of a 3D printer and no telling what's going to happen. Here's a better example. If there's this spot that's on the beach, and it's actually this beach, nobody's there, and it's amazing. There's even some fruits on the beach and coconuts on the beach. But if you don't know how to get there and you don't know how that it even exists, does it make a difference to you? No, you don't know how to get there. You don't even know that it exists. But does it exist? Yes. So this is what I'm getting you to realize. Just like you can't see the internal organs in your body, but they exist, so too there's another thing that you can't see, but it exists. And it's very important for us to come into the awareness of that and start compensating for the unseen. Because then when we're doing that, then we come in for the tutelage. We come in not thinking that we know everything, but we're here to actually learn something and say, okay, let me learn that step by step. And then what we did was we put together the interversity, the first interversity. Let me mute my line. We put together the first interversity, the stuff that's there now, for that very reason. Give me a quick second here. Okay, so I'm going to top the stream off at 2 hours. It was the introduction. My normal time is like an hour at this point when I get it in the future. Give me one quick second. Somebody's asking me if everything okay. Let me see. Make sure I'm just broadcasting on that side. So I'm going to do some rapid fire. And since I now have my scroll is working now, like it's just, I'm saying, like sometimes this stuff is just like buggy. It works until it doesn't. How would you move forward on the enlightenment sovereign path? Watch this. Okay, so watch this. We're going to go hyper speed. How would you move forward on the enlightenment sovereign path with family, with children, and other parents who may not be there all the way yet, right? Everybody's problem is somebody else. You need to get to the point where people stop becoming your problem. Once you do that, you will no longer have at least 85 to 90% of your problems. At that point, you'll be able to recharge. All right, let me shut this down now. You'll be able to recharge, and then you will be able to understand what you need to do. This is a path. This is a process. So if you can invest in yourself, or you got the time to start sifting through the videos that are here on YouTube, you will learn that knowledge. But to try to keep going forward and thinking you need this one answer to it, it's not going to happen that way, because this question is about somebody else. And as long as you're concerned about somebody else, you can't really be responsible for yourself. This is why we call it inner stand. It was the first process that we went through. So the next stage here is, or the next question here is, I'm just going to be grabbing these out of the random. Can you talk about the false parenting program and the main victimizer archetype? I do need a little bit more context around that. Like, what is the false parent program? Like, that's not like something we could go on Wikipedia and be like, okay, the false parent program. So maybe you can give me some extra context on that. I will say that the victimizer archetype, I guess, I was thinking actually somebody was saying that, the feeling of being that you are the victim, which we've talked about at some time. But I need a little bit more clarification on that question before I answer it. So let me go to another question here. You keep going up, but the trials become pleasurable knowing the growth they bring. Absolutely, this is the reward. It's like getting to the vista after climbing a large mountain, or the mirador as they call it, like where you're finally on top. and then now you can, see everything, and you could take a break and you could enjoy it. But the climb is needing to be there nonetheless. And I think that that's what I meant to mention in the other part of my conversation earlier, is that you got to do the work. Like there's no way around it. There's no genie in the bottle. You're the genie in the bottle. The bottle is the temple. The genie is the spirit, right? So you're the genie in the bottle, but you got to rub yourself right. And so this is not about me. This is not about everybody else. So if you don't get off of that, that's what the loop is here on the planet, because they got you stuck with thinking about everybody else, and it's always something. Do you notice how it's always something? You'll have this little angst, like a little nail in you or a hook in you of something that you're like, oh yeah, it's that person. Like today it was Buddy, Butterfingers, whatever he calls himself, and just the buffoonery, Sevan's dead. So you wake up and you're dead. You know what I mean? It's just like those kind of things. But I don't process any of that nowhere near the way that I used to process it. I didn't got to a point where I just ignore it. It's like, okay, I'm just too big to be messing around with people who are 7 subscribers. Now it's because they're taking my name and they're taking the website's name and they're putting that their secret energy and stuff. I have no choice but to do the legal thing on them now. So they're going to get the legal thing. The next thing here is as far as the questions are concerned, is, okay, looks like we're getting through this. I will have a different system of taking the questions in when we get up next time. I thought this would be efficient, but it's really not, because the rest of the chat is also pouring in. What's the best way to teach kids the knowledge, especially the end of the night prayers to the mother and father? It's very interesting how, since our children are our own, then we know what we like. And we know what we also feel like we need to avoid, like what we don't want to do. Right. So what I do is I can just only speak from examples. Like I'm going to just talk about an example of I took Aura through this process of understanding finances through Monopoly, but not just playing the game first. I went through the process of talking about how, that if you don't spend, I actually, you know what? I'm going to type all this up and I'm going to send it somewhere, and then I'll give you the whole layout. But it was like, I asked 4 questions, simple questions that children can learn. And I took her through the process of like, do you see that certain things when they get older, they're worth more money? Right? Here are some of them. Look at these antiques. Look at these old coins. But other things, when they're really old, they're worth no money. Look at these things in the junkyard. Look at these things here. What do you really think separates something from being worth a lot versus not being worth as much? And so she thought about it for a moment. And I said, look at this one. Look at this old one. How many of these do you still think are around? And she was like, probably not a lot. And I was like, especially since this one's in good condition, right? He says, yeah. And I said, now look at these 4 Tauruses. How many of these do you still think is around inside this junkyard? A lot. Right? So what is the common denominator here? Oh, there's a lot of these still available, but there's only one of these, especially in this condition. And through that process, I was able to teach her how finances work. And then so we said, okay, we're going to take this same principle to the Monopoly board here. And we're going to look at Marvin Gardens, which is only $60. And we're going to look at Park Place over here. And we're going to go through this process of understanding how, when you increase the value of something also, which was another question, how do you increase value? And then I showed her about how, you can take this house and it'll increase value to this. And then you add this hotel and it'll increase value too. And then now watch this now. Now it's like a game of odds now. It's about how many people land on your stuff. But if you keep increasing the value of it, eventually you will own all of that, what's here. And so she went into the process. She applied everything that she learned and she won the game. And that whole process for her, because I did the iPad Monopoly. That's when we played, because I know she likes to see the graphics and stuff like that. So I sat her down for the lesson, right? The boring part, right? But with the promise that we would then go to this and play it and see it on this thing. And so she loved the whole process. We got on the game. That's how they like to learn. That's what they like to do. She learned the lesson. And now if you ask her anything about how it works, she can tell you. Another one. For you mothers and even fathers, where you're carrying the child in the room, that's the best time. Aura, for me, from what I've done and seen her experience, I know that she has a level of knowledge and awareness because she was listening to this in all those recordings when she was still in the womb. Because her mother was sitting there probably in the room just listening or sleep or something like that, just getting that knowledge, right? So the other day she was like, oh, it doesn't really matter what it says, it's an illusion. And we all had to stand back for a moment and be like, okay, this could get a little uncomfortable unless you're going to run the YouTube channel now. But it's seeing how you are what is your culture, what is valuable to you in your house, and then creating an exercise. Sit there and think with your big brain, all the stuff that you've learned. How can I put something together? Because that's what I did. It wasn't something I read somewhere and said, do this with a child. But of course, the more of these kind of things we can have somewhere, the better off we can be, because then when this kind of question is asked, we can give you a whole list of things to do with your children that are things that we learn that work for our children. But again, if we have no community to do that in, and we have no tribe to do that with, because every moment somebody is trying to tear that down, how do we get to that part? When are we archiving? Like I was, Bobby Hemmett, which I wasn't that big of a fan of when he was around, but I still have to say pound for pound, as far as somebody who was reading all of the books, he has. So how many people actually compiled a list of all the books that Bobby Hemmett kept saying to read? Nobody. He's dead now. Dr. Ben Jokinen died in a bed inside of a hospital with nobody there with him. This is what people are doing to the ones that give them the foundation of their life. So why is that happening? Just like this question is pointing to, it's our children. It's us not starting with the children and saying, you know what? I don't got to go and teach this child math right now, English right now, social studies, somebody else's story, his story, that guy's story. I need to teach them what I feel like is vital right now. What's a fun way to teach kids cryptocurrency and decentralization? Crickets, meet, 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 meet. How can we teach kids to speak English language and get hooked on phonics? You see what I mean? So the more time we get a chance to be creative and not waste our energy on draining our life force, the more we're actually able to answer our mothers, our sisters, our brothers who are asking for real clarification about what to do in their lives. And it's always great when you can get knowledge from elders, because you get a chance. See, the reason why it's always a benefit to be able to ask a question and get a real answer to it is that you can fast forward. You can even get beyond the person that you're even asking the question to. That's why we read books. Somebody spent years and years writing this book, and then here you come inheriting all that knowledge in just that moment. So somebody is saying here, we're at 4 o'clock, so I'm going to wind it down. Can you speak on the Mother Ark returning to reclaim and restore her creation and the planetary grid returning to the Sophionic female coding? It already happened. You didn't see it? This is what's going on. We're looking outside for something that would take place within, and just the sheer fact that the only thing you would be able to see externally is the revelation of this UFO from the military is the beginning of the discourse between us and the alien. This is what Pierre Sabak also explained. It's encrypted in the language. Who is the alien? The one you're not familiar with, the foreigner. Now, there is an external alien. There is an external being that is on some external destroy type stuff, right? But what's most important is that internal alien, the foreigner, the one that you don't recognize, which is your organs and all your powers, and getting them back into alignment and then returning to yourself, right? Because that's the only way that we're going to be activating things, because many people think, once again, you think the mother is like powerless and that we're just over here abusing the mother. Like these are massive beings. Some would liken them unto dragons and big aquatic entities with large minds. So if you think that, you're over here doing damage to them, you need to understand that nature has been harvesting and I guess the word that I'm looking for is actually nature has been the haven for many different types of beings. You're still on the good, bad Catholic program, but there are things here right now that live here on earth that have temperaments that are hostile to you. There are places that you can go in the jungle where the things you see in there will hunt you. But if you're in this mindset and you're like, the mother is only beautiful and lovely and she cares for all of us, it's because you're in the program. You're only seeing one side of the snake. You're not seeing that everything eventually gets consumed by this. You're not seeing something like another life form get run down by another life form and get its life taken from it. You're in this fictitious human world at times thinking nature is just like a good thing when it's everything that we're experiencing in the physical plane and parts of our mind. So it's important to realize that this mother arc returning, reclaiming Sophionic female coding is actually really about when Thoth, which is a male and a female, an androgynon, which is corresponding to the moon's dark side and visible side, is to be activated and returned inside of us, taking us to the point in the garden where the split happened that made us appear that we are male or female. It takes you all the way to that point where you now realize why some can't figure out if the moon is a woman, while in the Sumerian text it referred to the moon as a male. Some can't figure out whether the angels are women or if they're male. And in many other occult sanctums and occult things, there is a confusion between whether this is a man, like Ninhursag or Ningrishida, or is it a woman? Because everything that says Nin inside of the Sumerian text is a woman, like Ninurtu and all the rest of them. So what it's a coding of is that, listen, you have both poles. You have a positive and a negative. You are a male and a female. You are a sun and a moon. You're a soul and a spirit. Any other, or a soul and a flesh. Any dualistic terminologies can always be summed up as that. So in order for there to be a return, you would need to actually be able to come to terms with that. And then you experience the Sophionic, which is the Sophia or Soph, which is enlightenment, right? It's an intelligence that taps you into all that there is to be learned and to be known. And then you begin your process there with the counselor. That's why Sophia was the Holy Ghost, also known as the Great Counselor, because it's an energy that rides with you, just like Thoth is an energy that rides with humanity. It's not one specific person and being how we see it. It's a spirit that feels many things. It's a personality. It's a trait. And once you learn that, then you also learn how to command elementals, fire, earth, wind, and water, because you're able to recognize this stuff, not externally trying to look up at the sky and wait on it, but internally that it's a sign that the work is almost complete. And what has been going on is a bunch of distraction to get people looking outside, because if you lay down at night right now and you start going into the dream world a little bit, you'll start feeling something, especially if you have your stuff at least halfway turned on. You're feeling things and seeing things that you never felt or seen before. Some stuff is even unidentifiable. It's not good, it's not bad, but it's something. And it's getting closer and it's closer. That's the grand awakening. So if you're not experiencing that, which we've all been at that stage, then you got to sit in for the tutelage. So this question is, can a being use neodymium magnets along with ley lines to jumpstart the Earth's field via the astral realm? Again, I don't want to say anything that makes a person feel that I'm talking derogatory towards them, and especially since there's names here. But I do want to be that person in your life that even if you choose not to listen to what I'm saying right now, in a couple years, you realize, man, he was right about that. Or you listen to it now and you actually are able to really get some results to what you really came into this for. And it's because I had to explain to you things like, when you want to jumpstart Earth's field, what you don't realize is that Earth already is jump-started at 7.83 on an octave. So basically, it could get all the way up to 12, 14 hertz, something like that. If you wanted to take Earth into a higher frequency than that, you wouldn't be able to keep the trees alive. You wouldn't be able to keep many of the things that need the lower vibratory field, which feels like to you that it's still. The Earth is moving right now, but it feels like to you it's still. But if it moves in a higher vibration, which is more shaking, the roots, the trees, it would be agitated. Your organs would be agitated. It's like listening to high frequencies. So there's things that just, you got this high frequency playing in your ear. It'll rip through it'll burn your eardrum out. So frequencies and octaves are based on what level a person's on. So if we took everybody here, there's a joke, if we took everybody here to heaven, we have to build cities there. This octave and this frequency is based on what kind of people are living here. If you decide that you want to go up to another stage and that's why you want to jumpstart Earth, you would be jumpstarting yourself. because they talk to you about Earth story is actually quite massive, and it gets into Magdalena, it gets into the dragon lines, it gets into her first son, it gets into her daughter Lilith, it gets into family members and family stuff going on. It gets into rebellious children, it gets into children that didn't want to do what the father was saying to do. It gets into beings that wanted to change in a world that you could not change, just like if you grow up in a family and they tell you you're going to be this, but you decide you wanted to be something else. What you just did was enact two of the archetypes of the Bible. The unchanging God, which is the Old Testament God. You can see it as the higher level of the Yod, would be the shadow of the Old Testament, or would be the opposite of the Old Testament God. But you see the Old Testament God enforcing everything and mad at people and jealous and hating that he created other things. And so that kind of form and that kind of force. You see the mother also protecting her son. This is why they show you Jesus and Jesus as the Messiah with his mother Magdalena, right? Like there's a shadow Jesus called the Antichrist. That is the physical being on the planet that is saying that they are taking up the kingship on the planet. How does all of this happen? It happens because at the core of the root, we're talking about DNA. And just because you right now don't know about how DNA really works, it doesn't mean other people and other beings don't. And how DNA works is just like you see with the llamas and just like you see with the Nasut bit or the pharaoh, when you have a child, your child is being prepared to receive your ka and your ba. So that way, when you die, you reanimate into them. And that was always what was going on. That's the tree of life. That's the tree of knowledge also of good and evil, the ability to be able to procreate or create. So now you become like a God. And then the tree of knowledge, which is the tree of the awareness of the activated DNA. And when you're doing that, then ye shall not perish and ye shall be like gods. That's what the whole contention point is all about here on earth between these skirmishes. So humans are being basically used as toy soldiers to act out the skirmishes in a family war. And as I said before, the word of the world is lost until you find it within. You're not going to be able to find the world outside anymore. That's why you don't see what the world really is. When you walk into nature, you ain't seeing what nature really is, whether that's from the negative side or the illustrious luminescent side of nature and all of its bioethnogenic energetics moving through it. You see what I mean? So if you know that, then you can humble yourself to know yourself. You see what I mean? It's like if you keep raging against this, I know what I'm talking about, I know what I'm doing, you're going to be the only one stuck in infinity with these archons that these people keep trying to wake up. The arts of John Dee and what they were doing, what the queen wanted John Dee to do was to get these angels to tell her when she was going to die so that she can sort her kingdom. And in that, they found out way more than they wanted to know. And the entities that they contacted with were not the agreeable energies, because the agreeable energies don't talk to people with selfish stuff going on. And they want to know stuff like when they're going to die. These are not genies in a bottle. But they went to the lowest of the low, those that are chained down and trapped into the center of the earth in the stasis in the bottom of the pyramid, dead but dreaming. And they cracked a hole into their world. The gate is not open, but there's a crack. And as long as that crack is open, what seeps into this world is abhorred things, because those are the things that God used to do his dirty work. And when the whole pop off in the war in heaven happened, instead of them going with God, they took the opportunity to come here because this was the only other place. You got to understand how this thing is put together from the diagram and the map that they're giving you. This is the only other place. So they came here. And when they came here and they took on the flesh because they fell from a higher density, gas, chaos, into a physical plane, so they took on physical bodies, elephants, giraffes, dinosaurs. Large were their souls, which the sides of the soul and the container of the consonants in which the vowels were put together for their names created their forms. But some of them are adverse to man. And what that's mean is not that they just have this personal beef with you. Let me get some water here. They drink gas. They live in a whole different environment. They don't even think like you. Jinn are the closest thing to humanity, and they don't even think like humans do. So what I'm saying is when you get into another octave and you get into another frequency, what's going on there, for one being, that's just like the lounge. For another being, it'll rip them apart. But since you have a vehicle for every single wavelength, and you would just need to learn how not to walk into every wavelength being a coward, being afraid of everything, thinking your life can be taken away from you when you're immortal, which would be to inherit your birthright. But you've been supplanted in most cases. This is why they have this whole thing going on in the Testament where somebody gets supplanted of their birthright. This is also symbolic. This happens externally. Internally, it's still united. Externally, there's a supplanting. That's why in the Old Testament shows that there's a war between basically the Father and the Son, and then he's cut off. That's known as the beheading of John the Baptist. Most people don't see, they're like, well, I thought that Jesus said that he loved the God. He's talking about the as above God, if you may. The war is between Jesus and the chief of demons, who is Yaldabaoth. But Jesus also has an antithesis, just like you have an antithesis called the Antichrist, a physical king. Just like I showed you that picture earlier, he looks like Christ, doesn't he? But they're physical kings that reign in the world immortally. My point was, how do they do that? Because they know how to go into their children. They didn't lose the knowledge that our children were more than just things we dress up like us and things that we try to make like us. They were the continuation of us, and with their consciousness being open, that's what they're trained for from the beginning. They're not trained no damn Mickey Mouse. They're not dizzy off no Disney. They learn the occult principles from the gate. That way there's no confusion and there's no separation between them and their families. You see what I mean? So also, this is why there was always a concern about the bloodlines, which later on became just a racial issue. But if the DNA starts crumbling on itself, especially like what you see with the G5 haplogroup, when there's too much of, basically they talk about how if you got a disease or you got a problem, like you get angry, you get upset, you tear things up, you have children that do that. And if you start interbreeding, you increase the magnitude of that gene. So this is why they told you, you need to get yourself right first before you try to create anything, because it's not just about children. It's videos, right? It's books, it's shows, anything that you create from yourself. If you still have that jealousy, greed, envy, all those kind of things still going on, it's going to be represented in that. But then guess what? That's why I tell you magic hits you back in the face when you practice it that way, because you send that out and then it grows into something. And then it hits you back into the face eventually, right? So it's better that you had to perform the great work the right way, the balanced way. I'll say it like that because, again, those are the tricks in English where the right way becomes a direction. So this is what I'm going to do. What I wanted to do is I wanted to put some kind of context around esoteric radio. I wanted to theme it a bit. So there's always got to be the clown of the day. So if you're out there clowning, and I'm just joking, but serious. If you're out there, I'm coming for you. You'll be the clown of the day. There's also going to be us taking something that nobody knew about and redisplaying it again so that we're all very clear, like we did on the consonants and the vowels, because things like that have become very important because all of magic is just filled with that awareness. But if you never realize that some words or letters have power and others are to contain that power, you'll never even discover how you are put together as a word that did not come back void. You won't understand how the vibration does really create something. So thus you will have no faith. And then thus when you have no faith, your heart is not aligning with your mouth. Like what you're saying is not aligning with what is going on in here. So you can't create the magic. You're half magic. You can just talk. Or you could just feel, oh, I wish, people that they just wish something would occur, but they don't know how to do it. It's in their heart to do it, but they can't go and do it. So we want that total alignment with all of our creative process so we can actually perform this work, and we're doing it on ourselves. Trusting that when we do that on ourselves, then we'll be able to actually assist others. So someone says here, Sevan, do you have previous videos talking about the powers of the pyramid and making our own meditation purposes? What you do is you go into Real Search, which is available now, secretenergy.com/real. That's REEL-search. And you just type in there, pyramids, meditation, and start going from there with the videos. Within a month, the search is going to be so refined and there's going to be so many more things added. There's about 200 videos added now. But once you get done, you get to the answer faster than I could get to it answering it, which is the goal. Maybe at some point we would just see what Sevan said. You know what I mean? Like just use the search and like, look, here's what it says. Let me add on to that rather than me repeating myself over and over again, right? So in conclusion here today, I also wanted to say thank you so much, everyone, for being here, for representing with the tribe. I think we topped off at 800 today. You know, it's also because, you know, as it starts running, you see the live and people click in and come in midstream. This was a warm-up. I just had to get in here because I've been telling myself, especially after, well, I just got done Friday. But I've been like, man, I need to get to YouTube, man. I need to get in there with my folks and really share and connect. And I'll think about, well, you know, we've got to get the interversity done, the new interversity. And I'll be like, okay, well, not today. I'll be able to do it soon. And today I decided, you know what? Now is better than never. Let's go ahead and jump in right now and get this thing started and kicked off because this is something that we have to do. And it's got to become a very, very intricate part of our weekly builds. So somebody saying Bobby Hemming isn't dead. That's wild, man. I actually hear that all the time. But yeah, he's out of here. But at least he still lives. He lives, right? Because some folks, they're like, nah, he's still here. Yeah, he's still here in your mind. And I guess that's good enough, right? It's always like, you know, yeah, it's tough to be a teacher of the dark side of the occult. It is, especially if you're dealing with, see, just to speak on that very clearly, see what happened with Bobby was they always pinned him between the black and the white. Every time, the only people that wanted to show up most of the time was the ones that wanted to hear Bobby say cracker at least 100 times in his conversation. So because of that, he had to stay in the dualism all the time. And because he was already trying to enlighten everybody about the dark side and what it really consists of, instead of him being like that opposing force to the darkness that can actually show how it all works, he became consumed by the darkness and just became a practitioner of it because that's what people wanted. And that's the danger. If I could tell you anything about what to watch out for as becoming this public figures or speaking to other people and all that, is don't lose who you are because of what everybody else wants. Because when your consciousness is ready to make the transformation, it's like, look, man, black and white, man, how is that even an example? The black ones, the white ones, the good and the bad. How are you ever going to get to the next stage? You're just going to always keep inventing the next opposing force for yourself. So when that time comes and you are trying to let yourself into the higher stage and get out of duality, you may have everybody else telling you, oh, no, it's the evil ones and this and this and this. And they will never be in a condition to do anything about it. Let's just put it that way. It ain't like stuff doesn't go on, and we're definitely not giving them a pass. But what we're saying is for you to be in a condition to do something about it, then you would need to activate. And if every time you spent your entire daily life into the drama and the troubles of what's going on in the world and you trying to understand it, then you would never have any time for yourself. And thus, most people don't. So we'll take it to 4:30. How do you deal with an unawakened partner that wants to learn but not ready to ascend yet? Do I engage in romance by loving, observing, or would it be a waste of my time completely? Now, again, I'm not a home wrecker. So what I'm telling you, just to answer this in two parts, is one, this question, I'm going to answer the latter before the former. Do I engage in a romance by loving? Okay. I want to actually speak to very briefly that we expect so much from others that it's starting to get borderline mythical. That's what I feel like that Buddy does highlight a lot, is people want so much from their partner. When you do the percentile of how many people are available like that, you're almost at like a 1%, a 0.5%. So it becomes unrealistic to expect certain things from others, right? Also, someone may be playing a role in your life that, you know, while you're reading all this namaste work and, you know, you're paying for all these veggies and stuff and all this stuff is expensive and they're still working. And you may be coming down on them like you need to leave that job and all that kind of stuff, but they're paying for how you're able to sustain yourself. Maybe you should see that person as making some type of sacrifice so that way you can actually be able to even do what you're doing. And you should take the opportunity while you have that comfort to actually get more aware of who you truly are. Because, yeah, you are going to need to stand on your own and you're going to need to actually be secure within yourself. And so are they. And when you can align two beings that are doing that together, there for sure is nothing in the physical plane that they can accomplish together. So that's that first, remembering that, you don't want to, get mean and angry and, try to feed the situation that, because you already know what that creates. So stay in that frequency, especially in a relationship and there's children involved, where you can handle that with your heart, handle that with the love, handle that in that space, because you've already opened up that with that person. But as it goes on, the first part of the question, how do I deal with the unawakened partner that wants to learn but not ready to ascend yet? Learn the difference between ascension and activation. They're two different things. There's a fine line, but there is a difference between now I'm going to actually perform the great work. I'm going up there. I'm about to do something that is going to cause my third eye to begin to open, but I'm prepared for it because I went through the activation process. And the activation process, which is a part that we're carving out specifically inside the interversity, it involves actually educating the body and the soul about their union and their partnership and what's one being's responsibility and what's the other being's responsibility. So that way they don't overlap. So this actually brings you to a stage where you're going through the activation process with your partner, and he sees what he's learning. If that's a male or a female, she sees what she's learning as part of the process to get to the ascension. Because a lot of us want to just have them activate right away, when if they're not, what we know activation really is, if they're not ready to unlock Kundalini, because they're not ready to go back through hundreds of years at least down the coil, because that's what Kundalini does. It unlocks the DNA strand, and you feel yourself from 100 years and more back. So all of those things that you did, or your great-great-grandmother did, your great-great-grandmother, everybody connects in your bloodline, all that needs to be solved. And some people need the activation process so they can start cleansing that first before they fling open the door. So that's good advice, learning the difference between those two and then sharing that with your partner. And also, being compassionate. It's the compass to Zion. Not everybody is ready to just accept all of this. And sometimes we need to get a little bit more eloquent at how we're presenting it. And so if you need to know the knowledge first, and then you'll know how to roll out the knowledge, right? How do I deal with the unawakened partner? I guess we talked about that already. Here we go. So we got 5 more minutes here. Here's one. How do we protect ourselves against psychic attacks and hitchhikers? Okay. This would basically mean that there is something around you that you have created that has become unclean. Okay. It's taken on an unclean state. When we imagine that we have energies around us, or that there's an energy or essence around us, how we think about that energy is what it begins to formulate and what it begins to become. So automatically, as we talked about in vibratory energetics, there are things that you do with your personal space to make sure that there's no frequencies coming into the space that are diametric to exactly what you're trying to get done in life. So 1, citrus. 2, Palo Santo and sage. 3, dump the music sometimes if you can't really balance out what the music has going on inside of it. 4, learn to meditate, because the mind has always been busy. Like if it wasn't singing a song that you kept listening to the other day, it's now telling you about somebody that you don't like. So mind's always trying to create something to have a conversation about. Meditation is getting in control of that mind. And then once you have control of that mind, psychic attacks and etheric hijackers don't even have access to that space that you're in. It's very important to realize this. You would, if anything can vibrate, and then some people say, well, no, they jumped on me, blah, blah, blah. Listen, nothing can attach to something that there's not a resonance with. It doesn't hang on, it slips right off. It's like you trying to weld 2 metals together that are not the same metals. And they're not a transitional metal. It never sticks. So we need to start taking responsibility for these spiritual activities that are being created from Netflix, because you can't contain your imagination. Sitting in negativity for too long, like when you hate somebody else that's around you, your significant other or whatever. You're listening to horror movies or watching horror flicks. You like to see people suffer, and you get too much of this going on. You got enemies, and you love to see your enemies be punished, and that's your whole kick. You see what I mean? Too much of that. So if you got a couple sprinkles of that, it's maintainable. But when that fills up everything that is going on in your life, you become that. And then you will go on from that point like, oh, I got this energy and blah, 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 blah. What do I do about it? So you got to reset. You got to come back into yourself. You got to realize how much power you really have. It's up to nobody else to determine if I'm getting out or in here, if I'm going to get to the next stage or not. I'm like waiting on this angel or waiting on mother or I'm not waiting on anybody. I saw people die in here without, they talk about he's going to come, he's going to return one day. I saw people die and never saw him. But I did see people who discovered it in themselves, and they are it. So that's what we got with that. So yeah, that's it. We got 2 more minutes. I think that's time for one more question. I'm gonna scroll down. Like, I guess it's like the lottery on this thing. Let's see what we got. I watched a video from Kevin Will the other day, and he was 1,000% in support. His words of the secret shadow government and wish he could join. Yeah, I mean, you get that. Like I said, like some folks, they immerse themselves into these kind of things. At first, it's the adversary for them. Then they want to become it because they never found themselves yet, right? So it's like, let me just join the next team. Let me find the next. And it's like, look, man, you need to develop, create. This is 2021. We're not riding around in Model Ts anymore. Somebody's got to take spirituality and bring it future forward for our children. But you will watch that a lot of folks are just caving under it, and now it's okay to take the shot, and it's okay to do this, and listen to them, and this is all part of the process. It's like, man, stick to what you know. I think someone's saying, can you talk about what happened to Valentine? I think that would be for another episode. We ain't trying to get the WWF or WWE going on here. Dun, 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 dun. You know what I mean? That'd be WWF, because they definitely will be, all right, Sevan, we've been waiting for you to jump into that one. What I'm doing is, if you come in my lane and you're coming with that craziness, I'm going to just say it like that. I'm not going to evoke anything. I'm just saying, all I'm dealing with is if you come in my lane or you come into the lane of the tribe and it's about disruption and chaos, and we're just like, we're over that. It's 2021 now. We started 11 years ago. We can't keep going on with that. Like, we got to progress in this. We need real things. Like, folks, we got to now start realizing we need to create our own things for real. And we need to create our own networks for real. And we got to have our own communication system for real. It's like, because in a moment, it ain't going to be there. It's going to be, well, unless you want to take the shot. You know what I mean? That's the only way you're going to be able to use it. So all that playing around and big and bad and getting people to like your page and all that kind of stuff, all that's going to catch up. And if you haven't been building anything really, then there's going to be nothing there to support you. And that's not what we want to see. I wouldn't want to wish that on anybody. Sometimes you see people do stuff in life and you're like, man, oh my goodness, something needs to happen to them. But never at any point in time, even when a person is facing exact retribution, am I just sitting there like, yes, make that happen to them. It's another failure. Again, even to have to get to this stage of getting folks legally chastised and garnished and all this kind of stuff and desisted and all this kind of stuff that has to happen now, it's just like, what a waste, but it's necessary. The earth is used to kind of wasting. So, I just try to be efficient with how the world is working right now and the energy that I have. Someone said, how can we help to get this going? I'm not sure. First of all, we give thanks for any type of suggestion to help others. And the reality is that I would need a little bit more specific, because we're already going. The thing here is that just finding where you're at in all of this. Like, where's your balance? Where's your path? Where's your tribe? And that's what we're providing to you. So it's when you're getting going, we're continuing to run. You see what I mean? Because it's like, that's what we are. We're doing this together. And that's what your contribution is to just connect. So Some say, what happened with Kate Agaya? I haven't checked in on Kate in at least 3 or 4 years. But what I can tell you always is the same thing you see. It's easier to know psychology sometimes than to learn spirituality because one is sometimes more proficient at letting you see what the ultimate condition that a person is in. And they could just be using something as another crutch to compensate for something else that they have not solved yet. So like, for instance, as I said, with this knowledge, there's things that society is doing wrong. So it's easy to get certain knowledge and then start getting mad at everybody else in society and then in every other organization, et cetera, and somehow trying to fulfill maybe some hurt or some pain that you're experiencing. And for a while, you cannot tell the difference between a person who wants to help everybody versus that they're doing that. But if you know psychology, you start noticing there's certain things that they do, and it starts letting you see that there's actually some type of character flaw going on there, and that this, what they're doing, is becoming a Band-Aid on that character flaw. And you can start seeing it coming unhinged. And what I started noticing a lot of this comes from is childhood abuse. That while many of us can for sure say that there were things that happened as children to us that may have scarred us a certain way or that we didn't like, there are some people that are still functional after that happened. While there is another state that we should also recognize, and that's when the person becomes dysfunctional after that they never get over it. It scarred them so much that someone now needs to come in there. It's like surgeon's work. You got to do a lot to really clear that energy and clean that space. But if that person goes out and finds something and starts becoming popular off of that, they still have that. So it's almost like a time bomb. It becomes only a certain amount of time before they basically explode. And when they do, everyone becomes the enemy. It's always the same pattern. Everyone becomes the enemy. The person that was the most illustrious in helping them get where they are no longer their friend and even also their enemy. And it's just always that same pattern. So this is what I'm seeing, that it's an extreme responsibility to have thousands of people listening to what you're saying and then hanging on every word of what you're saying, taking that as truth rather than even going to research it themselves or looking at a blueprint to see if it actually exists, and then doing what that person says. So in Kate's situation, it was, you don't have a name anymore. You need to lose your name. This is how Kate, I didn't never fall out with Kate. I never knew what happened. She made a show. First of all, that's another phenomena that I see happening a lot is that when there's a whole confusion about where we're at on the sexual scale, this seems to also be a straight segue to something that occurred when one was a child, which seems to also be a straight segue into some scarring that occurred. And then when those beings are out, and it's only a matter of time, if they don't patch up that hole, when they get all that power, which is what people give you, like if people believe you, they've kind of empowered you. And then so they get filled up, and as soon as they get to wherever that chakra is that's leaking, all of that power they have starts coming out of that chakra, and then you start seeing the external version of that chakra. So in this case, this external version that was being introduced started telling everybody that I was asking for people's name when they were signing up for my website. So because of that, I was involved with the controllers. And what pursued from there is at least 100 people emailing me over a period of time about how I wasn't the truth because I was asking for people's names when they sign up for the website, which is standard protocol when you sign up for a website. You don't even have to use your real name. But it'd be that kind of weird stuff. And what I would say is, as we talked about before, in the conscious community, we have to realize still that we're dealing with a slightly higher percentage of beings that are mentally dealing with something and spiritually dealing with something. That's why we're actually here. We're here to actually offer some assistance to that. But in being in, like, if you're a hospital, you can't expect not to see sick people, though. But there's also, you got to realize that hospitals have things to protect themselves from sick people. There's a quarantine. You see what I mean? And so this is also acting out in daily life, also acting out in the conscious community that, You know, some people have become so toxic, listening to what they're saying and trying to be around them has proven to be almost fruitless to what we need to be doing and how we need to be growing. So that's what I got today. I'm actually going to come around here probably a lot more sooner than later. I'm not going to be on any kind of schedule because I don't do that anymore. But I'm actually going to pick up the frequency of my engagements. I'm going to start jumping in here on YouTube. I'm going to compress the time. I know some are like, yeah, okay. There's nothing that I do that's not 3 hours, and today it was 3 hours again. I'm going to work on that, right? Actually, that's something that I'm making as a personal resolution. So if you see me get into this conversation, and we're at an hour and I cut it short, don't think that, I'm just not trying to spend time. It's that I want to put this into a session where others that are coming along can digest it. And also I want to theme it a bit more so that way we have like a schedule with the show. So you can always expect to see the clown of the day. No, I'm joking. We can always expect to see the knowledge that we're revealing of the day. You can always expect to be able to get your question answered. And you can always expect for certain things to take place in that segment of time that we'll have together. So wholeness and balanced vibrations. I'll see everyone soon. Take care of yourself. Definitely realize that, man, you still got fingers. You got toes. You got eyeballs. And if we're starting to work on doing something with that versus always dealing with the same situations that we keep complaining about every day, maybe in life we'll actually find ourselves actually getting somewhere. Thank you so much. Let's get to it. Thank you.
You shouldn't give up in frustration. Your body has the DNA for it.
Well, then why can't we see it?
Our purpose, to create a star within a star.
Well, then why can't we see it?
We have here nitric acid, glycerine, and a special mixture of my own. Together, it's horrible, dangerous stuff, blows you up. But mixed together in the right way, as only I know how, what do you think it makes?
I don't know, sir.
Of course you don't know. You don't know because only I know. If you knew and I didn't know, then you'd be teaching me instead of me teaching you. And for a student to teach his teacher, it's presumptuous and rude. Do I make myself clear?
Yes, sir.
Good.
Finally, we get to, at a certain point, this 8th and 9th dimensional being.
Well, then why can't we see it?